Seventh Inning Fetch.
Yeah. I have that one, and I have the promotional copy of that one too.
Seventh Inning Fetch is
or so it was one of
and then there's MVP Most Valuable Primate because they couldn't get Air Bud to play hockey.
Oh, I don't have that one. I don't know. Does that really count though?
Well, it's in the Air Bud family. It's in the
it's extended universe of the Air Bud thing. Yeah. Yeah, I got those right when you go into my house. They're on VHS. They're above one of the door mantles.
Why do you have all those Air Buds?
It's for good luck.
Good luck. Yeah, no, they're definitely good luck.
I also have a collection of Max Keebler's Big Move on VHS. I have 4 of those.
Remember that one?
I remember that one.
I have Big Fat Liar. I have 3 of those.
Those are good.
On
that was,
VHS.
that was Frankie Muniz and Amanda Bynes.
And then I've been doing. I do this thing with my friend where I've noticed that every thrift store has a copy of Master and Commander on DVD. Every single one for some reason.
With Russell Crowe?
With Russell Crowe. It's Master and Commander, and they always have Shrek.
Yeah,
they always have those.
Of course.
And it's really easy to get them. So I've collected, I think I have around 15 of them on DVD, and I give them to my friend Sam, and he has this vast collection of it.
Do you know of the...
and Forrest Gump on VHS. Very easy to get.
Such a classic.
The Artist Collective, Everything is Terrible, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. They have the whole collection of Jerry Maguire.
They
It's
built
gorgeous.
like a room out of Jerry Maguire.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
I was able to sit in the throne when they came to see the family.
That is beautiful.
Throne. It's pretty amazing.
I'm very proud of them and what they're capable of.
There you go.
We're live.
Awesome.
All right,
We've been live for like the past 2 minutes.
Oh, we're actually on?
Yeah.
Talk about
I told
Air
Nick,
Bud.
I was like, just turn it on.
Cool.
That's the key to success is watching Air Bud.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we had the whole we had an hour-long conversation already. You guys missed it. It was mostly about Air Bud.
Yeah.
So that was what we found out.
It's okay.
Brian's
It's
words
just
of
Richard
wisdom.
and
We're watching more Air Bud.
Christopher or Christopher?
They're in good condition too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
They made a lot of Air Bud movies.
They made
not
too many
enough.
Air Bud.
Not enough.
And all those dogs are dead. I think that's the sad. Yeah.
I mean, they were all dead by now, but it's not as bad as Milo and Otis.
Oh yeah, they're. Oh, that's
I
sad. That's
named my
definitely
first
sad.
You know the story
cat
about that,
after
right?
Milo.
Oh, that's
I know.
definitely
All
sad.
the
I
the
learned
cats kept
that
dying.
later. I think I learned about that whole movie when I was on Rick and Morty season 2. Andy Riggin told me everything, and I was like, Andy, you ruined my childhood.
Yeah, they just had like a bucket of cats, and every time one died, they just throw it in.
Wait, is that seriously how it went?
I don't know. Maybe.
Can you not?
I go through a lot.
There was a bucket.
There's a bucket of cats. All right, you guys want to get started officially?
Well, how's the mic?
How's the audio, Nick?
Because Richard said that there's a little bit of feedback.
Testing.
It's me crunching the vegetables that I demanded.
We're gonna try to figure out what's wrong with the audio.
We want the audio to be good so that people don't shame us later.
Dude, what do people normally
And
ask
hate
for
on
in the
us.
show?
Huh?
What do people normally ask? All kinds
Like
of
for
things?
stuff, some people ask for drinks. Most people ask for veggies.
Oh yeah. What was the
Oh,
weirdest
really?
thing that
Okay.
we've had? Can anyone remember the weirdest like request that we've ever
We
had?
should be keeping track of that.
I
don't.
know.
Single red rose floating in a
Dog
top hat.
food.
We probably go through past emails, and just like, oh, this person dog food. But I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Puppy chow.
What are you gonna do about it? I'm your guest.
I mean,
Give
it
me dog
probably
food.
has to be like a certain type of drink or
Not
something.
enough people have asked for drinks though.
Lately, no, everyone's like, I'm good, I'm healthy right now.
Sober October.
Everyone's like sobering up. It's
Yeah.
a good thing.
Yeah.
Was it Leela who asked for like a really specific drink?
Oh, I wasn't here with Leela.
Oh, you weren't? It might have been.
Like,
I
someone
remember
asked for, like,
Joe asked for a yerba mate.
Hey, that was
Oh,
Yeah.
Yerba
Yerba
mate.
mate.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that
Yerba
one.
mate.
Yeah.
Yerba mate.
Yeah. And I was
Do you
like,
like
what's that?
No.
No?
I it's kind of ambiguous what I
Yeah,
what
I
I
thought
am. It's
maybe
very
you
weird.
What are you?
I'm an undercover Latino.
I can't share my secrets.
What?
Yeah, you guys can guess. I just won't answer.
Can you guess what I am?
Italian.
She's Iraqi.
Shut up! He would have never guessed
I would
that.
have never
See?
guessed that.
Fuck you. I
I
wanted secrets too.
I can't believe I remembered that.
That's
you told me that
impressive.
like the first day I met you.
We're good.
Yeah.
I know I told you, but he didn't
Yeah,
know.
yeah. Okay, never mind. She's not.
Dick.
I thought you were joking
my,
too.
that was my leg up on him.
Yeah, you could have ridden it out and pretended you weren't.
All right. So we're better now?
Now that everyone hates each other.
Can you hear us?
That would be. That could
Are
be
all the
something
fans satisfied? What?
People can guess what I am. in the comments.
That's a good idea.
Guess
The entire
Josh's
time.
ethnicity.
Yeah.
That would be fun and not problematic.
No,
I
not at
Not
all.
problematic at all. Yeah. How's the audio, Nick? Good?
Good.
How's the audio?
Yeah.
We're good.
Good. All right.
Okay.
Ready to get started?
Oh, yes.
Do song.
All right.
Oh, hi, Lauren.
Nick, why don't you give me a countdown to make it official or something like that?
3, 2.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the ASS Podcast. That stands for the Animation Success Stories Podcast. If you've never watched or listened to this podcast before, this is how it works. Every time we get together, it's not really worth saying week or month at this point. We do it very rarely, but it's still always a blast whenever we do it. But every time we get together, we talk to an animation industry professional. We listen to their story, how they got to where they are, the mountains they need to climb, the rivers that they need to traverse, the shit they need to trod through in order to get to where they are today in the animation industry. Sometimes we have veterans that have been in the industry for 40 years. Sometimes we have newbies that are fresh faces to the industry. Today we have
A newbie.
a newbie.
I'm a newbie.
We have Josh Barish, who is currently the design assistant on season 4 of Rick and Morty, a show where Brian, Sabrina, and I all worked on at one point. Josh also does illustration work. He said he dabbles in character design work and also animation screenwriting, you mentioned?
Yeah, yep.
Dude, this guy does it all. He's
Does it
a
all.
fresh face, but watch out for him. He's going to
Master
kill you.
nut.
Hey, man. Eventually you'll master something.
Yeah.
All right, so
Don't kill me.
stab. Today we're going to learn all about Josh's story in the animation industry, how he got to where he is, and hopefully some of you guys that are out there looking to get started in the animation industry, finishing up college, finishing up high school, can figure out how you too can get in a position like Josh is in. Design assistant is an entry-level position on Rick and Morty, something that is very feasible for anybody listening to this podcast, whether you have a lot of experience in the animation industry or you're a fresh face in school right now, to have in the next couple of years, potentially.
Oh, no.
You never know.
Rick and Morty's going to get all these emails flowing in. Hey,
Yeah.
can I get an entry-level job?
Yeah.
And I had no idea what it was when I got first
I
offered
think it's
the
new.
job.
I think
yeah?
you're the first.
Well, David Weiser
was the
was the
design
original.
assistant.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
For the,
Okay.
for the
coordinator.
first 3 years in Rick and Morty, Weiser
Yeah.
was design assistant.
Okay.
All right, we're gonna hear all about what that position is in a little bit. But first, we're gonna get started by asking you the question we ask everybody who sits in this seat: what is your first animation memory? First animation
This
memory.
is exciting because I've been watching the show for a little bit, so I'm prepared for this.
Aw,
for this
Oh,
question.
we got a fan.
And I thought about this like an hour before coming over here. I was in the kitchen with a pad of paper, and what
Wow,
was it? Yeah,
Josh.
yeah, it's a whole thing.
Oh shit! Everybody get comfortable.
Phone's going out.
Oh,
What is that? Oh.
Oh, it's your
everyone.
friend's calling you
Oh,
to
that's
tell
a
you
cool-
your
Oh,
first
yeah,
animation
he's very
memory.
excited. Yeah, it's true. I phoned a friend. The friend put it up to the thing. my historian friend. I would say so. My earliest memory is of a broken VHS of a Christmas cartoon called Christmas Comes Once a Year. I used to go to a cabin when I was a little kid. It was owned by my grandpa, and we had a whole bunch of VHSs, Jurassic Park being one that everybody owned. I had Indiana Jones,
Of course.
and I had a broken VHS of a collection of Christmas cartoons. Let it be known that I am Jewish and do not celebrate Christmas.
You better.
Yeah, but I cherish this VHS very much. What I really liked about it is that it was warped and the sound was really fucked up, and
Great.
it was really experimental and weird. I just there's something about the animation that was just really gorgeous and really resonates with me. And
What year was this?
it was like
VHS?
1938.
This was like a 1938 movie you had.
It was a short Christmas. It was a Fleischer cartoon.
Oh, it was a Fleischer cartoon.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
wow.
there's one of the very first shots was actually they made a 3D not 3D model, but they made a
small
literal model.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
they tilted the camera. It was so cool.
Oh,
at
for the
time.
set.
Yeah,
Yeah,
It literally
they used to
opens.
do that all the
they-
time in Fleischer
yeah.
cartoons. Those are always beautiful to actually
Yeah.
watch. It's amazing. So that's your first animation memory is a Fleischer cartoon on a warped VHS.
Yeah.
That you would watch in a cabin. You said.
I watch in a cabin. Yeah.
Wow. That's a very
And then I would
specific.
read a flesh-bound book and summon
Cabin.
the Deadites.
Nice. The Necronomicon.
But I think the wanted to do for the rest of my life was watching It's Such a Beautiful Day by Don Hertzfeldt.
Oh,
If you guys have ever seen Don
course.
Hertzfeldt stuff before.
Classic, yeah.
The spoon
yeah.
is too big.
Yeah, he was, he first got to start doing Rejected, which is everyone knows from My Spoon is Too Big. I remember seeing that in middle school on a shitty YouTube video from like 2006.
Sure.
And then he came out with that film many years later, and I remember watching that and crying. And because it's this one guy that made it over the course of, I think, it's 3 separate short films. Mm-hmm. They made over a series, I think, 6 or 7 years.
Yeah, for sure.
And
so, Hertzfeldt is pretty amazing.
Oh yeah, guys. Scooch.
There you go.
This is what he looks like.
Hey everyone.
It's like a microphone.
This is my good side. I was trying to hide the bad side.
So Hertzfeldt was kind of the launching point, but it's Such a Beautiful Day. That's what it was called.
Yeah, that was a collection of all 3.
That was released maybe not more than like 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah, I think it was 2012. I think, yeah.
2012.
Yeah. That was around. I was. It was kind of a weird thing with me for animation. I've always loved animation.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up watching Yellow Submarine and all those other like really weird stuff. I was never really kind of a Disney guy, but I loved watching a lot of the weirder stuff. Although some of the weirder Disney stuff like Fantasia is awesome. Mm-hmm. But
so you weren't a Disney princess person.
I was not a Disney princess person.
Damn it. Are you now?
Yeah, I certainly do love my Disney princess movies.
What's your favorite?
Frozen.
I was gonna say, if you say Frozen, I'm gonna kill you.
My whole room is covered in Frozen merchandise.
Yeah. You have an Elsa tattoo on your left?
Oh yeah. It's
Oh my
actually on my
God.
ass.
On
It's
your
like
ass,
a
okay.
yeah.
You have Elsa on your left cheek and on your right.
Oh yeah, they're like dueling it out. It's pretty cool.
That's pretty good.
So let's take a step back for a second. So you were saying animation is you've had an interesting experience with animation growing up. It wasn't something you realized you wanted to do.
Right.
You saw this movie. So as a kid, were you somebody that was drawn to like always like drawing?
Oh yeah, no, I was
the
doodler in class. I'd sit in the back. Me and my friend Quinn, we would at recess during middle school, we would make comics every single day. Shout out to Quinn. We would put it on binder paper, and we would just make these really gross, weird cartoons with stick figures.
About how old were you at the time?
I was probably 13, 14.
Cool.
And I remember I made my first comic book. It was called Leaf or something, and it was all just, I would photocopy it, and it was just all binder paper, and it made absolutely no sense. And it was about this like bomb that would fight people, and I tried to sell it at school, and I got in trouble. It was really funny.
You got in trouble?
Oh, I got in trouble. You can't sell stuff at school. Yeah.
Who cares?
I know.
Didn't people sell those stupid like chocolates all the time? Like they'll buy it and then they'll like get profit out of it.
Yeah, that was from school.
Chocolate drive.
Yeah.
So you think?
People
My
used to
sister
sell-
was one of those people who used that lie.
Yeah, you're not supposed to use school grants, especially public school, for like
Soliciting.
business.
Yeah.
Yeah, Josh.
Yeah. People would sell warheads all the time in my school.
Me too.
Or
Yeah.
Cheetos.
That was a big
or...
thing. Warheads were huge. That was a hot commodity.
Yeah.
They were basically currency in themselves.
Yeah, and then now all those people are drug dealers.
Economy.
Yeah, from selling warheads to selling meth, essentially.
Yeah, it was a lucrative business.
Okay, so when did you? So you realized you wanted to do animation in 2000. Do you mind if I ask how old you are?
Oh, sure. I'm 26. So
26. Okay, so 2012, you were like in your late teens.
Yeah, late teens. Yeah, I think around the time that I was watching Don Hertzfeldt, so I was already in art school.
Okay.
So I wanted to be an illustrator at the time. So when I was in middle school, I took all the art classes I could.
Okay.
High school came around, I took every art class.
Did you go to an art high school, or did you go to?
No,
public?
it was literally called California High School.
Okay, so you're from California.
Yeah, it was out of a bad teen movie. It's literally called California. High School.
Go California!
Where is it located?
It is in San Ramon, California.
Where's that?
Little bubbles, Northern California.
California.
You got San Francisco, Burbank. It's like 30 minutes south of that.
Oh, okay.
Ish. Someone's gonna correct me in the
30
comments.
minutes south of San Francisco.
Yeah.
You
Ish.
seem like you'd be from the San Francisco.
Yeah, I got kind of
You got a
definitely
San
a Bay
Fran
Area.
vibe. You don't like when you call it San Fran, though, right?
No,
That's what I heard. Like, if you're in San Francisco, don't call it San Fran.
People in San Francisco just trash talk LA, but then all of them are moving down here and they have to eat their words. It's pretty great. I'm really liking it.
So when you were in high school, how'd you pick what college you wanted to go to? And where did you end up going?
I went to school at California College of the Arts. All right, I gotta silence my phone. I'm just gonna turn it off.
I like that glow.
Oh, it's all my friends calling me. It's nice.
Oh, they're watching you. They're like, "Oh man, answer the phone. I want to be on the podcast."
Yeah, seriously.
That's great.
Now they call me. No one ever called me out of that.
Always happens.
Now that I'm famous and rich.
At the end of the podcast, we give you a stack of money.
Yeah, I did
It's
it.
called Rick and Morty syndrome.
Yeah, we all jump in the air and it freeze frames like an 80s movie.
That's a secret.
Yeah, not supposed to reveal that. So, so around middle school, high school, I was the guy that drew all the time. People would like ask me to make posters for their screamo band and everything.
Nice.
It's true.
That's
It's
so
actually
specific.
true. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was
but
the
your
thing.
art, your style of art, if you see his style of art, you'll understand.
Yeah, back then it was really like gnarly limbs
Yeah.
and everything. It was all over the place.
Very screamo friendly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, in retrospect, what happened, and I think a lot of artists fall into this, is that I didn't want to learn the fundamentals. I didn't want to learn how to draw people, so I just learned how to draw monsters.
Yeah.
Just like how where the wild things are was supposed to be.
Yeah.
Mike Manoa. Yeah, where the wild things are was supposed to be horses, and he couldn't draw horses, so he made them wild things.
Oh, I had no idea. Wow.
So for me, I couldn't draw people, I couldn't draw stuff, so I drew monsters, and then that's what kind of turned to what it is now. And then years later, I was like, shit, I better learn how to draw people.
And
So
yeah.
I had to do that. But
Did they make you do that in college?
surprisingly, not really.
They didn't make
Yeah,
you.
that-
What
not
college
really.
did you go to?
I went to California College of the Arts. I went. My dad signed me up for a pre-college program towards the end of high school, and I was in a class taught by a man named Baron Story, and Baron Story is the reason why I went to college there.
It's a great name.
Baron is amazing. He did. You guys ever read Lord of the Flies?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He did the cover. The kid's face with all this stuff.
Oh,
He brought that
wow.
in one time. It was massive. Baron
That's
is
so iconic.
he's an incredible illustrator. His stuff is very visceral. It could be described as kind of violent. It's kind of like I think 9 Inch Nails would like kind of took that kind of look. It was kind of grungy before grunge. Baron is incredible, and I wanted to be that. I wanted to be an illustrator. At the time, I didn't quite know too much about animation. I loved it, but I didn't quite think I was capable of it.
Sure.
So I wanted to be an illustrator, and so I went to after doing that course.
This is the pre-college course.
It's pre-college, yeah.
And Baron was the teacher of the
Baron was
pre-college.
the teacher of this
Pre-college
pre-college.
course.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
I actually recommend to anyone out there if they're young enough. I recommend pre-college. I think it's really nice. It's a nice introduction to art school.
And what did the class consist of? Was it a general art class? Or?
Yeah. Illustration. It was kind of a weird major. I think it depends on the school. For me, it turned out to be more editorial based. So it would be like one project would be we want you to do this album cover. Another project is we want you to do a poster for the thing or the New Yorker.
So it's almost kind of like graphic design, but not really.
Yeah, it would
because
be-
You're illustrating. You're not just doing logos. You're actually illustrating like.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah,
that
exactly.
makes
Yeah. So like when you open up the New Yorker and you see like something about a cell phone and you see like a graphic of somebody like on the phone, but it's like kind of it's all
It's like
metaphorical.
Yeah. It's a drawing.
That would be an editorial illustration,
Oh.
and the school was full of some of the finest editorial illustrations out there. And so it was definitely like kind of a world of its own. It was a separate kind of thing, and all those people were freelance.
Yeah.
Did they ever do like clothing too or no? Because
I guess there were some assignments that would require that kind of thing, but not quite. I guess there was a fashion major at that school that was a little bit more inclined to that, but screen printing
Okay.
would also kind of fall into that territory.
Okay, because I can see like how I don't know, editorial illustration can like also like.
I would definitely say now, if this school, it would definitely probably be a project to start designing stuff because shirts really picked up. I think at that time at my school, I think shirts, there was like t-shirt spree and stuff like that, but it wasn't quite, that big. And
Yeah,
now
now
it's
more
like,
prevalent. I
it's
guess.
all about the merchandise.
So how'd you go from Baron's Story to
Yeah, so
ending up?
Yeah.
Well, I guess your pre-college course with Baron's Story. That's his name, right?
Right.
Baron's Story. Did you have him again when you went to college?
I ended up having him years later. It was really hard to get him because he taught a much later course. He taught, I think it was Illustration 4, and then when you get in, you start with Illustration 1. And so I ended up going to that school. It was over in San Francisco and Oakland. There's 2 separate campuses, each kind of doing their own thing, each kind of personality. I really loved the Oakland campus the most. It was gorgeous, and I really loved that area. But so I started to do editorial stuff. I also did weird things like that glassblowing, screen printing. Glassblowing.
Glassblowing.
Glassblowing it's a whole thing, and the people colorectal glassblowers. They're getting really mad at me right now, but they would
All
have the
dicks.
most. Yeah, they had the most calloused hands. It was like leather,
I believe that.
and none of them would wear deodorant. Because there was just no point, because they were just sweating so bad. And this was men, women, no matter who, you know. And so whenever you were in a class, you know, English or whatever, and it just smelled like BO, it would just be because of the one glass blower in the
blowers
corner.
are coming.
Yeah, and they would just,
Here
you know,
comes-
they'd have the
here comes
heavy
the
jacket.
blower.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here comes those blowies. Those goddamn blowies.
Yeah.
So did you ever think about becoming a glass blower instead of an
No,
illustrator?
because my hands, it hurts so bad. And you know what's really funny is I made certain things out of glass, and then I remember I made this one really cool one. It was like this fist with like an eye on it, and then it wasn't until years later that it looks like a fucking sex toy. It just
Oh
looks
my
like you
God.
could- and I'm like, oh god, I wonder
Good
if people
side.
thought about that.
You could have made bongs and
Yeah,
pipes for
I
Rick and
could've.
Morty.
I could have, yeah.
Bonds and
I know
dildos,
Justin
that's all
is.
you're gonna do with that glass.
Yeah.
It's
Bonds.
true, and you couldn't do it at school. You
Glass
weren't allowed.
dildos,
Yeah, everyone wanted to be Chihuly, but it doesn't quite work like that.
So, first of all, I'm surprised they didn't make you take a figure drawing classes in illustration.
They kind of
Oh, they
did.
kinda
Yes
did?
and no. They weren't. You know, in retrospect, I'm a little bit mad that they weren't more mean to me about it.
Yeah. So what was the kind of? How did that work? Did they make you take a figure?
Yeah,
like
I did.
one
I took about 2
Oh,
classes.
so figure
Yeah,
two figure drawing.
but
classes?
you know, I
2 hours.
what I would do is I would like kind of compensate, and I would kind of make it a little bit more cartoony.
Oh, okay, and they were
and-
cool with that.
They were cool with it. I think that the part of them was like, "Come on, dude," and then you know, I wish I listened to them, but that's kind of how I would do it. I think a lot of the time was just kind of compensating.
Yeah, you were putting your own flair on it.
I was
but
putting my
at
own
the
flair.
time
It just wasn't necessary.
You weren't focusing on the basics of the
Right.
Sounds like an artiste.
Yeah, well, you know, because we would show it at the end of class, and I just wanted to make it like, oh, he does it cool, you know, like, and I'm like, yeah, that's me, you know, like, you know, but
What's this?
that's a smoking cigar in the back of the party.
Wow. Look at that brooding loner.
Yeah.
This crazy fucking figure drawers.
I listen
into
to Animal
monsters.
Collective, Merriweather Post Pavilion. Good album. But yeah, so it wasn't until senior year.
Mhm.
Oh, and I was, you know, what was happening is I was getting really sick of doing editorial stuff. I liked the metaphorical aspect. I liked it was a puzzle in my mind.
Yeah.
It was, you know,
How can I translate this into something
Right.
remarkable that's also
artistic.
Artistic,
Yeah,
yeah.
and it was cool. It was like, you know, they would make an assignment would be like this editorial, this article, this fictitious article is about smoking in planes being bad for babies.
yeah.
And so you'd have to come up with
Babies in planes.
babies in planes.
Everybody.
But everywhere else it's fine. But like if you know, to draw this, you'd have to you could make some like weird shape with a plane and maybe like indented as a baby's head. So it was like, you know, and you've seen
Yeah.
those really cool, and you're like, oh, whoa. So it's a really cool way to wrap your mind and make something that's not, you know, you have to kind of think about it.
Yeah. So
Um,
I guess if there's a takeaway from these classes and this as your major, it's the fact that you were able to think outside the box.
Yeah, I was
Taught you how to
working
think outside-
metaphorically.
yeah,
and I
outside the box.
heavily think about that now.
Yeah.
A lot of what my illustrations later turned out to be was heavily metaphorical based, which I'm very happy about, and that's what I did like about the editorial stuff. But after a while, this junior year and senior year, I started to piss off a lot of my professors because I wanted to add a lot of story to my stuff. And it was that's just not what editorial illustration was about. And I was really like, I don't want to be this. I don't want to be an editorial storyteller. Or I'm an editorial illustrator. And so a lot happened my senior year. And also at the time I lived in a house full of 147 people, which was nuts.
I
lived
heard.
on-
I
Just
remember you
enough.
saying.
Yeah,
something
shout
like
out to Casa Zimbabwe.
Can you name all of them real quick?
Oh yeah, every single one. We have a quick list that goes up really quickly. Yep.
So
Was
wait,
Fallon there or not?
Fallon was there.
Okay.
That's how this whole thing
Okay.
came
Yeah,
to be.
we'll
is 'cause
eventually
I
get
lived
to
in
that
this
point,
house.
right?
Casa Zimbabwe.
Yeah, Casa Zimbabwe. CZ. I was a czar. It
So
was a,
was that a like a fraternity? Kind
It
of
was
thing?
it was like a hippie house
Okay.
kind of thing, and
Does
there
it
was a
still
whole bunch of them.
exist?
Yeah, it still exists. I think it's a little bit more rule based now. Back then, it was you just throw bottles everywhere and paint on the walls,
Yeah.
and it was a madhouse.
So how many people slept in one room?
You was between you had your own separate rooms. Imagine it was like kind of a dorm run by people our age. There was no adults. It was just like kind of its own thing.
Yeah.
All the walls are covered in art. You could do whatever you wanted. There was still people that were in charge of things,
Yeah.
but it was kind of
like a commune.
It was a commune.
It was like a
100%
I like
commune.
that.
Yeah, and I loved it. And
Kinda
what was really cool
communist
is that
project.
I was one of the very few artists there.
Okay.
And so people,
what were most people?
most people were in Berkeley. They were computer science majors. They studied
Oh, well,
nature.
that's fun to be
Yeah.
like around
I
a
was-
bunch of squares.
Yeah, well, it was good, but it was like
Hippie
there was
You're the life of the party,
yeah,
right?
yeah. Well, believe me, there were some crazy party animals there. But
oh, I know.
but-
I won't underestimate.
oh, you should see
Berkeley
pictures.
students.
I'll show you guys later.
Oh, great.
It was nuts.
So fun.
But I was the guy that painted on stuff all the time, and it was really cool. And one of the things that I really
Was it cool or was it annoying?
yeah, it was a little bit of
We
both.
need an artist. Get Josh
Yeah.
trying to sleep.
But one of the things I really liked about it is that you learn a lot living with a lot of people.
Yeah.
And so a lot of what were my illustrations at that time had to do a lot more with emotions and that sort of thing. I think around that time in college, people start to have a lot of existential questions.
For sure.
They go through a lot of drug use.
Yes.
They sometimes have a very, very hard time. And I was around a lot of people around that time. I myself was definitely struggling, figuring out I don't want to be an editorial illustrator. So a lot of my art started to kind of deal with more with with depression and anxiety and trying to figure out that sort of thing. And talking to so many people and hearing so many people their different stories and people from all around the world, because students they go to Berkeley from Ireland, they would go from Ukraine, all over the place.
Yeah. So a lot of people from all over the country.
Yeah, we come and I
filter through this
right.
this kind of hippie commune.
Yeah, and we would smoke weed and talk, and it was
I wanna
really
go
cool.
there
And listen
now.
to Kendrick Lamar.
Just hang out.
Yeah.
It was
sounds like a blast.
really cool. And
How did you, as an artist, get in with all of these tech people?
well,
How did you
so
get in there?
I guess it was a little bit before the tech time, but it was all Berkeley students, so it wasn't
Okay.
just tech people. There was
Cool.
some tech people,
But
but
you weren't a Berkeley student.
I was not. Yeah. So the requirements for this co-op was that you just had to be pursuing an education,
Okay.
and you could live in it.
Got
Is
and-
it because of just for convenience, as far as like somebody like people
Yeah, it was
trying
like
to find a
lower
living
income,
Yeah.
kind of opportunity, and I wish there was more co-ops in the world because it was a beautiful way to kind of emotionally grow up.
Space. Yeah.
Were you there all 4 years?
I was there for 2.5 years, and I went to a smaller co-op called Davis, and I have a lot of crazy stories. I used to pull pranks on people all the time, and one of the pranks that they pulled on me is that they plastered my entire door, and they painted a mural that looks like my artwork over it. And then when I came home one day, they're like waiting, and they're like, "What are you doing on this floor?" I'm like, "That's my room," and they're like, "You never lived here," and they're just trying to play this whole thing. I had pictures. It was really funny.
And that was at Davis?
No, that was at CZ.
That was at CZ?
Yeah, at
Okay.
Davis I had to play nicer. It was a less crazy house. I think I lived with 47 people. I made some enemies because of how rambunctious I was. And that translated to college because I ended up, what happened is that I was kind of living a more zany life, living in this co-op and making a lot more emotional based art. And I just wasn't invested in this editorial stuff.
Yeah.
I wanted to tell stories. I started to write a lot. I started to draw comics. I was really into comics. I was like hoping to be a comic artist when I graduated. I was writing this whole thing, and I one day went to one of my professors, who's just a pristine professor, and I'm sure he doesn't really like me that much anymore. But this was the guy who did the DreamWorks Moon. He hated that.
Oh, wow. What's this guy's name?
I feel
Yeah,
so
he
bad.
does not like you.
Yeah, I know. I feel so bad. It's horrible.
It's
If
fine.
you're out
Somebody
there,
watching, look it up.
Someone
I
will know.
respect you so much. He did the Harry Potter house logos. What we know now,
cool.
that was
He did
him.
like Gryffindor and Hufflepuff.
Everything,
and
all of
Slytherin.
them.
Hufflepuff?
He is
Hubble
a brilliant
Double bubble?
brilliant painter, but he's a hyper realistic painter, and I came to him one day because I wasn't liking this editorial stuff, and I was like, "Hey, listen, can I propose to you that instead of me coming to class, that I create a series and do kind of my own thing, and then I get your feedback on instead of doing this because this is just not what I want to do." And he was pretty against it. And when he was like, why don't you write me? He wanted to see if I call bluff. So he's like, why don't you write me like a 5-6 page doc thing why I should let you do this and what it's about. I said okay, and then he went and talked to the head of the illustration department, who his name was Owen, and so yeah, I know it was, and he later I think got really mad because other people started following suit. I guess I was the only one that did that, and then I was like, fuck you, I wrote this thing and I did it, and I wanted to make an entire series about kind of depression and anxiety and all these different types of fears and emotional stuff, and make it through an editorial illustration mindset. So it's metaphorical, like it wasn't. It was like a whole kind of series dealing with that kind of stuff, and then I went to him and he was like, fine, you can do it, and he was really not happy about it. So I stopped going to class and I was working on these illustrations. And in my brain, I was like, I want to be an illustrator, but I want to do more like this kind of weird mental stuff. And I was at the time looking a lot more at like street art, like Alex Pardee and those kind of artists. And that's how I wanted to be that kind of illustrator. I didn't want to be an editorial illustrator. I wanted to be the kind of guy that would make that kind of art that you would sell and that sort of thing, and like Skinner, that sort of thing. And actually, I painted a mural and Skinner came and hung out for a while. It was really fun.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and at the time I was also painting murals and doing that sort of thing. So that was, I wanted to be like part of the Juxtapose crew. I wanted to do High Fructose. I wanted to be a part of that world.
That makes sense, yeah.
And I think a lot of people in my school at the time in the illustration department wanted to do that as well. But a lot of the teachers, that wasn't their life. The editorial New Yorker stuff, that was their life.
For sure.
I find it interesting. Like, you've already expressed the fact that you didn't want to do editorial illustration, and that the teachers couldn't just say, recommend that you pursue like mural work and other work.
Yeah, it just wasn't part of the curriculum.
Because like if I had a student like, this isn't really my jam, I was like, let's find your jam.
Yeah.
It should be that easy.
Yeah,
They're angry. Why are you here late?
Yeah, it wasn't like that. And the biggest problem was that the animation department was really crumbling at CCA at the time. Pixar was just around the corner, and there was like one or two 2D classes. And there was some people that graduated in 2D animation, and they came to work on some really cool shows. But it felt like kind of the animation people at CCA at the time, they felt kind of like their own thing, and they weren't very inclusive. Yeah. And they were kind of more into the Pixar realm, and so I never felt like I could be a part of that. And I think I was very envious of like Cal Arts, and how Cal Arts had like an experimental animation thing. That was not a thing at CCA. They didn't allow that. It was traditional or Pixar based stuff. And so it didn't even cross my mind to be doing animation, because it just felt like those people didn't want me, and I made weird stuff. So senior year comes around, and to really piss off professors, I didn't really mean to do this. I just wanted to make something weird. My senior project was, everyone else was, you were supposed to make a series and make it any kind of way you wanted, but a lot of people did it traditionally. Some people would be like, this is a whole bit different types of cities and different atmospheres. This is a city underwater. Here's this. Or like, this is a series about famous dogs. And I presented to the class, I'm like, I want to buy a whole bunch of mannequins and make 5 fictitious characters and have them die, and I draw how they die and put it on the mannequin.
That's cool.
And my teachers were like, no. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to do it anyway.
So like, you're creating these fictitious characters? Or
I made them. Yeah, because I loved writing so much, and I loved comic books. And at the time, how I would draw comic books, I was really into this way of making like weird organic panels. So instead of just a traditional square, the panel would be the environment that the character was living in. And I was drawing a comic at the time. So if the character's at the beach, it would be made out of waves, or it would be made these organic shapes. And so I really love this idea. And I don't like death in a morbid way. I find death like kind of the moments before death beautiful. It is. I don't like the violence of death. What I was fascinated with is that they say that when you're dying, DMT shoots in your brain, and you have this big fish moment where all your friends are there. Yeah. So when I drew these characters, it wasn't morbid. It wasn't them being stabbed. Instead, it was this beautiful release of memories. And so what I did was I bought these mannequins, which I have some of them still, and I had 5 characters of different atmospheres. They kind of were my own things that I loved at the time. The ocean. I was obsessed with kind of jungle, so I created a character that was in Vietnam. I made a character that was in a rave, and I made a character that was that was in the forest, and I think I made one other one, and they were all dressed as their character.
Yeah.
And I was like, the project was more or less about their death, but what they saw before they died.
Sure.
And so I was like, how can I make memories? Like, it's really abstract, because that's what I was really into at the time, was memories.
Sure.
So I'm like, oh, you know what would be cool is if I mount like a mobile protruding from their chest, and it kind of their memories spin.
That's neat.
Yeah. And then the head would be the illustration, and it would be this kind of fusion of like you see them, and then you kind of see how they die, but it's part of their memories into this organic kind of shape.
Was this a full size mannequin?
Yeah, it's
like
a full size mannequin.
Macy's size
Yeah,
mannequin?
I bought these
Artsy
mannequins.
fartsy.
And then you dressed them in clothes, and you painted the face, and you put the mobile on it.
Yeah, mobile.
Photos
And then,
of these?
yeah, I can show you after the thing. It's
Okay.
all on my website. I think the project was called The Day I Die. The Day I Die.
It's the story of the
And
year.
how did your professors react to it after it was done?
It was probably the weirdest thing that the whole class made, because nobody made anything with like tangible parts or anything.
Yeah.
It was framed beautiful work, and so I think some people were. I don't think people were uncomfortable by it, but it was just very off-putting, and it had nothing to do with my major.
Yeah.
There's nothing. If someone were to see that, they'd be like, "This is not an editorial illustrator. I'm not going to hire this person." And the point of the senior show is that they have people from the New Yorker come and they see these people. They're talent scouting.
So you were like, I don't want to be hired.
yeah, and so it was essentially pointless. But to me at the time, it was just really important. It was just beautiful to me to. This is what I cared about. I didn't give a fuck about getting a job for the New Yorker or anything.
It was your artistic integrity you were trying to keep intact.
Right.
And did that end up leading to anything?
No, not at all.
Project? No.
Yeah, but what did is at the same time I was missing one credit, and the only class that I could take was character design in animation. And I was like, oh shit.
Why was that the only class? It was the only thing available?
It was the only thing available, and it was for like freshmen.
Oh.
But it worked. It worked for my credit. So I'm like, I don't care. I'll take it. So I was with. I took a class. His name was Ed, and Ed was a classically trained Disney animator. He worked on The Lion King and all this other stuff. And what I really liked about him is that he was really strict in a great way, and I was really happy about it because nobody was really strict with me at that school.
Yeah.
And I was being a brat 90% of the time. And I think all I just really wanted was someone to whip me with a belt and be like, "Stop, dude.
Get in line."
Yeah.
Did you know that you were being a brat?
Yeah. No, I thought I was being a cool fucking punk. I swear to God, I thought I was.
I remember art school.
Yeah, exactly. I thought I was going to be the next Alex Pardee, the next Skinner. I thought that I was the shit.
Yeah,
and
out of all the art students in art school, I'm the artiest.
Yeah, exactly. And then who's that? Oh, David Cho. He graduated. He knew some people at my school, so I was like, yeah, I'll be a millionaire, and I'll just,
My girlfriend went to a David Cho exhibit recently, and it was like a walkthrough warehouse, and she had to like look up at a person and tell her like innermost desires as the person wept. That was part of. I mean, it was like a secret thing. I'm not supposed to say anything, but it was.
Erase that part.
But it was one of the weirdest experiences.
Oh my God!
She was telling me all about it.
I love that.
He's a weird motherfucker.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I thought I would be. I'm eating a carrot now. Long.
You're not supposed to have carrots.
No, I don't know if the chewing is okay for people.
Oh, it's fine. We already make people angry.
Yeah, fair enough.
If they struggle to hear what you're saying, it'll mean so much more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's my loud laughs already make people angry.
So how did all this end up leading to your first job?
Oh yeah. So I started taking this animation class, and I started to do turnarounds. I started to do character designs, and I was like, something kind of just clicked. I was like, wow, this is really cool. Yeah. I can make these characters bounce and do all these weird things, and there was just something about when I was animating buoyancy and all this other stuff. I'm like, this is I like this. Yeah. This is in illustration, all my stuff was pointy and lined, and it was not possible to animate. But the second I started smoothing out my lines, and started making simplifying things so they could actually move, I was like, oh, this is kind of what I wanted. This is like my idols like Invader Zim and all this other stuff. Ren and
Yeah.
Stimpy. This is what I like.
Yeah.
And I was like, but shit, it's senior year. It's too late to switch my major. There's nothing I could really do. But something clicked about storytelling at that time. And I remember what got me so excited was you were allowed to write these short stories that you would animate. Not entirely just little sequences, but you can just kind of start to write stuff. And then I would just go nuts. It was really, you were supposed to write like a 1 minute thing or even 30 seconds. And I would just make a whole story.
This was in your character design?
Yeah, character design thing. And I would just write this like whole giant story. I even wrote like a video game that I wanted to do. I made all the characters and backgrounds. I just spent like with in illustration, I just did the bare minimum. I'm like, there, cool, and I just dick around and make jokes, and people were annoyed with me. But when it came with animation, I was just like, I wanted to stay there until 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. I didn't give a shit.
Oh,
Sure.
Yeah,
you
I
were
was
one
like-
of those.
You were laser focused.
Yeah, and that
Who
was.
wanted to be there.
I know, I wanted to, and nobody wanted to be there. It was really funny. But
That's funny. Yeah, that's funny. Especially when you're in a class with all freshmen and you're a senior. And you're
I know, dude.
You guys
I
don't
know,
get
it's
it.
the
This
back.
is amazing.
Yeah, I know, and all of them were like,
Yeah.
"What?" Yeah. And it was funny because I was being validated too, because all the freshmen were like, "Wow, this is cool designs." I'm like, "Yeah, thank you."
I'm a professional.
Yeah. I'm like 3 or 4 years older than all of them.
That's funny.
But yeah. So then when I clicked, I was like, "Oh, I want more of this," but there was really no way for me to kind of continue that at the time, because after graduation, it's like you're falling. Those animals that fall off the cliff, it's just like
Yep.
crashing down.
Yeah.
And
It's like, we got your money, leave.
yeah, exactly. And so I didn't have access to this animation stuff, and I would make shorts. I was learning Flash. All this kind of happened. But then after I graduated, I started to hang out with, I was in the co-op, and I knew some people that were film majors at Berkeley.
Okay.
And I loved writing stories, and I loved writing like little shitty scripts and stuff. So I started to help people in live action because I felt like that was close-ish to animation.
What did you help them do? You helped them write?
I would help write. I would help do art department stuff because I knew art stuff.
Okay.
So I'd help set them up. I'd help do makeup, whatever I could.
Oh,
These
cool.
are silly
Yeah.
short films.
So anything they needed, you would fill in that part just to be a part of that environment.
Yeah. And then I wanted to make my own stuff. I wanted to be David Lynch. I wanted to make Eraserhead. And then I still wanted to do animation on the side. I just didn't quite see how it was possible because I always felt like to be in animation, you had to go for school for it. And that isn't necessarily true. Let it be known.
It's a belief.
It's a belief. There's quite a few people at the studio of Rick and Morty that did not go to school for it.
Oh yeah, I mean this podcast, you guys have actually heard already that there's a lot of people that we've had on here that haven't gone to college. So
Yeah.
Juan, he never went to college. And
Yeah.
he's a director. He was, or I don't know, he still is. No, yeah, he was a director in Rick and Morty.
Yeah.
So.
Carlos, that is the lead character designer.
Did he
of Rick
never
and
go
Morty,
to-
never went to school.
Are you serious?
Dead serious.
Oh,
He's brilliant.
He's
Brilliant.
man.
Did Anthony Chen go to art school, or did he?
He did not go to
went
Yeah,
to,
he did not go to art school.
Oh my
Yeah,
God.
something
Yeah.
completely different, right?
Business.
Business
Yeah, he
school
did.
or
He
something.
did.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
Didn't he also? Wasn't he also? He played violin professionally
Yeah,
too.
he's like a prodigy.
Yeah.
He does it
Yeah.
on the street. I see him performing on the street sometimes.
Yeah, I know. I love it. It's
Amazing.
awesome.
Yeah.
It was.
Like,
Oh,
right
I heard
outside
him play
Rick and Morty,
once at
yeah.
the studio. I was
Yeah.
like, "You play?
It-
Oh my god!"
It was really funny because when I saw him play the violin one time, it was the first time I saw him. It was this weird kind of Disney movie original moment where I thought he was like a guardian angel that's always going to be like,
He's
Yeah.
gonna give you sage advice.
yeah, exactly. Like I'm going to be at Starbucks, and he's going to be giving me the coffee, and no matter where I go, he's going to follow me. I was like, oh, my angel.
He's gonna pop up like Christopher Lloyd and Angels in
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I thought. Yeah.
Using your coffee cup.
Yeah. But so, I thought like, no, there's no way for me to be able to be an animator. So I started gravitating towards live action.
Okay.
While still kind of goofing around and doing my own thing with illustrations and still continuing. But what I really liked is that I carried those rule sets from animation to my illustration. I started to make my characters more rounded, more following the rules of animation, not following the rules of illustration.
Like in your head, even though you were you're still illustrating and not animating, you thought, I guess, on some, cognitive level that these characters could be animated if I wanted them to.
Yes, exactly. Before I didn't think about how a character looked in 3D space or how they would move. It would be graphic.
Yeah.
you know. And then after animation, I was like, I don't want graphic. I want these characters to leap out of the page.
Yeah.
So if I couldn't animate them, I'll illustrate them in a way that felt like they could move. And to me, that felt just nicer. And there was a huge transitional period where in illustration, I was using these thick black lines. I was trying to be edgy. I was trying to be, you know, like the high fructose. And then right when I started to learn animation, I liked softness. I started to tap into kind of more.
You matured.
Yeah, I matured, and it wasn't about being edgy. It was about being emotional and being, you know, sweet almost. And I started to like incorporate like almost a colored pencil look that I use now. Before it was like these heavy, thick lines, and you can't use these really thick, heavy lines with animation. You can a little bit, but it's difficult. Yeah, it looks kind of like a '90s or like edge. Yeah, it just doesn't quite work. And then I kind of transitioned to more of a soft look, and that made me a lot happier. So I started to apply a lot of the rules I worked in to animation over there, and all the storytelling.
Makes sense. And with this film stuff you were doing, were you actually getting paid for this, or was it?
It was all student stuff, so I wasn't.
Stuff.
And
Okay,
I
cool.
wanted to be a part of it. I wanted to do whatever I could, because my worry was, if I don't, you know people that are going to do this, like, what am I, you know, like, how am I going to survive?
You want to surround yourself with people that are doing creative things.
Yeah, that's all my friends now are creative. Whether they make music or whatever they do, I love to be surrounded by people that want to make because they love making things.
Yeah, and that drive is also very contagious.
Yeah,
That productivity drive and everything.
And
And you
it's
surround yourself with people like that. You're like,
it's
I
so
want to
fun.
create something too now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's such a nice age after you graduate college too, because you're still kind of under the mindset that like art is beautiful and life is beautiful. I mean, you should still have that now, but you get hardened over time. I mean, it's really hard as you get older to
Well,
find
because
that.
politics get into
Politics, yeah, it's horrible.
money. Oh yeah.
But at that particular time, that was still a thing because everyone was really young. So I wanted to be part of any student project I could, as long as the person
cool.
wasn't an asshole.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah.
How did this transition to like your first paid job? What was your first like paid job out of college?
Doing illustration or doing
Anything in the art world, I guess, or unless you had other gigs, did you have?
yeah, I was
other
doing
gigs?
out of college. Around college, I was doing a lot of like album covers for people.
Okay.
I was
cool.
doing murals and stuff. I was
How did these people how did you find these people that needed it?
mostly because I was in the co-op, and they're like, "Do you know anybody that could do art?" And ding, 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 and
Okay.
just kind of point my direction.
Ding, ding.
Yeah,
That's making time.
exactly. Yeah, and you know, one of the tough things is that when you go to art school, you're surrounded by all these people that are just so incredibly talented, and then you're like, oh, I'm lowest on the totem pole. It isn't necessarily true, but then when I was in a house full of people and I was the only artist, you know, it's kind of like,
And you just need someone to say yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Makes sense. Cool. So you're doing album covers. You were doing what else? Illustrations.
Yeah, I was doing peak murals with
Murals
spray
were
paint.
cool.
I was really
Right.
loving that. It was really fun.
Didn't you do like short film stuff?
Yeah, I made, you know, around the time I was helping people, I was basically pulling in favors by helping people for free to work on my own stuff. So I made my own short films.
Oh, cool. Like live action films.
Live action
I
stuff.
think I saw one of them.
Yeah, it was years ago. It was, it's called I Wish You the Best.
Okay.
Yeah, that, don't look that up. It's very dated. It's a student film. Yeah, I know. I still have it on there. I'm paying Venmo like $5 a month to keep it on there. It's like 5 years old or something.
Venmo or
Vimeo.
Vimeo.
Yeah, Venmo. Yeah.
You're paying Venmo.
Yeah, I'm paying Venmo. Yeah. But
Cool.
yeah, and then even then, when I was making these films, I would just storyboard it all because I knew I had to draw stuff. So I was loving it. I was like, oh, I'm a one man machine, just doing all this stuff.
That's
and
experience still too for animation.
and a lot of the way I wrote was dreamlike in an animated way, and even to this day, the way I write is animated.
Yeah. Like an anything is possible mindset.
Yeah, anything's possible in a very Charlie Kaufman magic realism. You know, I can't write. I mean, I could if I wanted to, but I don't tend to write in a realistic way. I tend to write in a magic realism way that taps into the same mindset of animation. That's kind of surrealist,
Sure.
kind of thing.
Miyazaki kind of.
Yeah,
mindset.
sure.
Yes.
And that's what I love so much about animation too. Is that you can't. Live action is sort of limited in terms of abstract kind of mindsets, and you look at certain animated films, especially people from CalArts or all over.
Sure.
You just go on to Vimeo and go in the animation section and
Venmo.
Yeah, Venmo, the Venmo. Yeah. Yeah, so I was doing a lot of that stuff. I was doing album covers. I was doing murals. Anything that kind of just cool illustrations. So then what happened is, after doing a lot of student films and doing my own film, I was like, I think I gotta move to LA. I gotta do like an internship. I gotta like kind of figure out what's
this was
next.
all still up in
This is all in the Bay Area. I haven't moved to the LA yet.
So what prompted?
I think it was just like I needed to figure out what was next. And the Bay Area doesn't quite have anything for the arts. I mean, it's a at the time it was doing a little bit okay. Now it's a very dwindling scene. I think
interesting because I whenever I think of people from Berkeley area, I think of them as just like artistic.
Oh, they're amazing. Yeah. But now what's happened is that the tech companies are forcing them down.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So you decided to make the move down to LA.
Decided to move down to LA. I got an internship with a company. I will not name them because I don't like them.
Are they an animation studio?
No, they are a live action studio.
Okay.
They've made very big movies.
Sure, you don't want to warn people?
Yeah.
I don't mind shit talking.
Okay. Well, yeah.
If you don't want to.
No, I'll shit talk. They're called Aperture Entertainment. And I was friends with one of the people there, and I like him, and he was very kind to me, so I appreciated that. What happened was that it was a free internship, and I didn't have a problem with that because sometimes you got to do it. I'm not
right out of college. I mean,
right.
It's never ideal, but sometimes
it's not ideal. But
nowadays, I think that's like outdated.
Yeah, I think people should get paid. That is my opinion.
I think now it's a law.
Yeah. Oh, is it a law now?
I think so.
That's
awesome.
Yeah, you'd have to get school credit.
Cool.
Yeah, for sure. You need school credit.
But yeah, I mean that's definitely in live action. That's really not a thing in animation. Maybe people work for free, but in live action, because there's so much access to all this material and like people willing to get into it, they're like, oh, just work for free for like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
So what they make you do at Aperture?
They made me read screenplays and do coverage, which is the kind of typical thing that you would do.
What's coverage again?
Coverage is when you read an entire screenplay, and these executives don't give a shit about reading. They want a synopsis.
Yes.
So you read, 200. No, you read like 400 pages.
Oh, and then you give them like cliff notes.
Give them cliff notes.
Oh my
give
god.
Give them a rundown. You give. Yeah, and I'm gonna shit talk a lot of live action today. I have so many problems with live action. I love live action, but fuck live action.
Is it the
fuck
people?
The industry. Yeah, because you're just fodder to the machine in live action. People. I don't think this is always necessarily true in animation, but I think that in animation you pay your dues, and then you kind of the hope is if you are talented enough, you rise to the top.
Kind of. I think we're more like encouraging and empathetic though in animation versus live action.
It's a way smaller.
Yeah, because in live action, I hear that like you're like getting people's coffee orders for the longest time.
Oh yeah, and then
if you fuck up
up
once, like they give you shit on the spot.
Yeah, they chop off one of your fingers.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like John Wick.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, show the finger up. No, but I mean that's the problem with live action is that they convince you that you need to be a part of this world to know anybody, to get anything, and that is absolutely not true. Being an outsider artist is very possible. You get a job, you gotta pay your dues, or you gotta pay the bills, but don't believe that getting an internship in live action is gonna make you a big star. Yeah, it's just not true.
Some people don't know that.
And it's very, very easy to get abused, and it's really disturbing. And so I would do a lot of coverage every day. I would read 400 pages. I would do all this stuff.
That sounds abusive.
Yeah, and I had a lot of opinions on these scripts. A lot of them were garbage, and I didn't know shit. I definitely had an ego at the time. Now I think I've really mellowed down, and thinking my writing now is far superior than it was then.
I would think script coverage for live action. Somebody like you who comes from a place where you want to tell these stories, and your art is like an emotional and metaphorical thing. Like you probably have a lot of input on these scripts and how the stories are being told. When most of the time they just want somebody indifferent, just kind of reading it like, this is what happens. Spewing of what it is. Right?
Exactly, and since I come from I like metaphor. I like things kind of be symbolic. I love symbolism. That's what illustration. Yeah, that's what illustration, editorial illustration taught me is to find a way to use symbolism to tell your story. so that's how I've always. That's why I like these magic realism movies and Don Hertzfeld and stuff, is because of the symbolism that they use, and so when I read these scripts and there are pieces of shit from these amazing writers. Also, I want to say right now that if you think that your writing is shit, I have read the worst screenplays from the most talented writers.
Wow. So
Yeah.
you're saying well-known
Well
writers
known,
are
just
submitting scripts that are just garbage.
garbage
Really?
that do not have proper endings, that have errors up the ass, that have characters that should not exist, that have scenes that should not
Do you
exist.
think it's just because they're just shitting out so much crap that like some of them are just garbage, or
I
just
just
Waiting for one to hit.
Yeah.
just waiting for
Yeah.
it to hit?
I believe that.
and I just don't think that it I just don't think that I don't think that there's that many geniuses of writing as people think it is. I think
Yeah.
that there's a lot of people that are good.
Yeah.
You know?
It's also like the industry of animation, live
Yeah.
action, is highly collaborative.
Right.
So you're looking at like the first draft of
Right.
something, which
Yeah.
you would have gone through like several revisions,
Right.
a couple of
Yeah.
in-house
6
writers
other
and
people that came
directors
in.
other
And I think
people
these
kind
people,
of-
sure, yeah.
they're
Right.
paid to literally spit out ideas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And which
So,
one they do. That's
yeah.
what that job was.
Yeah, and a lot of these
Shitting it all
writers
out.
are weathered down completely because they've written this dream project, and then notes came in from the studio, and they were like, "I want to make a movie about a dog that's an astronaut." And the studio's like, "What if it's a wolf? And what if he shoots lasers?" And they're like, "But," and they're like, "Here's more money," and you're like, "Oh, okay." And
Did
then
they
after,
make this?
yeah, I wish they did.
That's
Yeah,
Airbud.
Airbud in space, Airbud in space,
Oh
let
my
it be.
God.
It has to exist already.
I think they did one.
I hope so. He plays basketball. Basketball in space would be rather easy for Airbud. Yeah, it's kind of good. So I read this stuff, and I had notes, and I don't know if those notes in retrospect were as good as I thought they were, but I had notes, and I remember, and how it worked was that there was this big fancy executive producer, and he would be in his room, and you'd have his assistant. His assistant was very nice to me, and if I ever see him on the street, I want to give him a hug because he was very kind. But we would be in our chair, and we would just be pumping out these coverage, and he would come out and he would say things, and we're supposed to be afraid of this man and not talk to him. And then one day he comes out. I think I'm doing this internship for like 2.5 months now, or 3 months, and he comes out and he is like, I don't understand what's going wrong with the script. It's this and this, and he's talking to his assistant. And I read this script, and this was like the one script I was like, I have a really good idea. Like, if this character's relationship was like this for this person, this would actually make this a little bit better. You could actually cut this. I was like, oh, this is, because what I would sometimes do is, I had this aspiration that I would say the right thing, and so sometimes I'd go home after reading the script, and I would start writing what I think I would fix.
Yeah.
Well, what's great about that, you feel like you're that's the collaboration
Yeah.
process. That's the part that gets us excited about creating.
Right.
Is like, I can fix this.
Yeah.
We're working together to make fixes. That's what we want to do, make good stuff.
Yeah.
And nobody wants to make crap.
Right.
And so he comes out, and he comes out, and he's like, I just don't know what's wrong with this. And I'm like, hey, I think I have this idea. And he kind of looks at me. I'm like, I think maybe if he did this, and then this, and then this, and then I know in that moment the assistant looks at me, and he had the biggest eyes I've ever seen. And then he just stares at me, and then the other interns are staring at me. And the boss...
That's a movie moment.
I know, it's a movie, it truly is. And he looks at me, and there's like 30 seconds of just dead air. And he goes, who the fuck said the intern could talk to me?
See,
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Do those people like that in the industry?
Yeah,
God.
fuck you.
That's insane that somebody would say that.
And
Well, did he go, because he's genius?
Yeah, boom! Come on into my office, here's a cigar!
Did he not do that? Did he just treat you like shit?
And then I
kick you out,
kind of no, he didn't kick me out. I just kind of cowered below, and he just stared at me, and then he walked back into his room, and then the assistant was like, "Don't ever fucking do that again."
Oh my
And
God.
and then the next day, my friend Sam, who was one of the reasons actually I moved to LA, to kind of if you wait for just a second, before I moved to LA, I tried to make as many connections as I could. I went to all these films that I really liked, these student films. I would go on Vimeo or Venmo, and I would and I would just look at all these films that were shot in LA but were lower budget, and I'd look at the credits.
Sure.
And I would see people that made it, and I would just reach out on Facebook. I'd be like, hey, I'm Josh, I made
Very
stuff.
smart,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like
Ingenuitive.
99% of people would not respond, but every once in a while a couple would. And like 3 of them that responded are still some of my best friends today. And this was like 5 years ago, 5 or 6 years ago. So I really recommend, if you love somebody and you love their work and they're within your realm of grasp, reach out to them. Huge help, and it led me to opportunities.
So
Anyway,
you stayed with them when you come out here or something?
I did. I got lunch with them, and because this is my friend Sam Shapson, and Sam, I met with him at lunch when I moved to LA around the time I was doing the internship, and he was like, yeah, I like your work, let's kind of figure something out, and then we became closer friends. And so at the time, Sam was ADing a movie, which is assistant directing. He also is a creative, but on the side to kind of pay the bills, he's an assistant director. And so he was like, hey, I just got this job. We're looking for somebody to help on the art side. We're gonna fly you to San Jose, and you'll stay in this big mansion with everyone who want to do it. And then that was the day that I got yelled at, and I said, "Cool, I'm in. How long?" He's like, "Yeah, about 3 or 4 months." I'm like, "Cool, in." So I called the assistant. I'm like, "I quit," and I hung up the phone. It was literally the same day, and he's like, "Okay." And I never came back in.
I wish you would have said it to the guy who told you to fuck off.
I know, dude. I know.
The people like that keep such a distance.
They don't
would
care.
never
They
let
don't
you
give a
hear,
fuck.
But it probably was a shock the next day when he came in and you weren't there.
No, in fact, I'm sure that person felt vindicated. He's
Yeah.
like, yeah, that guy spoke up. He learned his place.
Yeah.
You'd be never working his town again. It feels like he probably did something
He
right by
learned
being
his
a
lesson.
complete asshole.
Yeah, and I'll tell you right now, the movies that he fucking backed were just the worst. Like, we're talking like it was really big budgeted shit films, and then just garbage horror movies.
Yeah,
like
because
Santa's coming home.
Yeah, someone like that is not.
They don't
They're not in
care.
a collaborative field. They don't want to work with people, so they're going to produce garbage.
They're just smoking that. They're smoking the fucking stank of their shit from all the movies that this is produced by on it. And that's something else that I find really disturbing about live action and animation is that I feel like in animation, people that are of high stature, they have to work very hard to get there. You know, in Rick and Morty, we have someone Wes Archer, and Wes is an absolute legend. And Wes has been in some of the best projects. He started out in The Simpsons, and he is a supervising director because he earned it. And in live action, in terms of art department and everything, you have to earn it to be a production designer, but to be certain producers and stuff, you just gotta know somebody.
My best friend, when he was alive, he asked me a question once. He was like, what does it take to be a producer? I was like, nothing. You got money?
Yeah.
That's it.
That's exactly it. And there's certain producers that I worked with that are so damn good at their job. But the term producer is there's so many different, loose.
It's just the executive producer.
Yeah, exactly. So there's certain producers I've worked with that are just so talented and are incredible, especially live action. But other producers there's one of the shittiest movies I ever fucking worked on. One of the producers was like 18 years old, and he just railed coke. And he just came from a super wealthy family. I wish I knew that guy's name so I could tell him to go fuck himself. I forgot that guy's name. It was this shit movie with it's called Altitude. Yeah.
Horror movie?
No, it was a movie that took place in a plane. It had Dolph Lundgren.
Okay.
Dolph Lundgren was in it, and she was one of the Bond girls. Charlie Sheen married her. You know what I'm talking about? She was in like The World Is Not Enough or something.
Oh, Denise Richards.
Denise Richards was in it.
Okay.
Yeah, and those are the kind of movies. It was like a medium budget, it was low budget movie that they just shit out so grandmas are confused and they buy it for their kid at like the $5 bargain bin thing.
There's animation does that too.
It's true. It's true.
There's like the Chop Kick Panda.
Yeah. Then like a Toy Story will be called like Man Story or whatever. Yeah. But those are the worst people to work with because they aren't the ones that are gonna pay you.
So what was your first lead towards the animation industry?
So, I was working in live action for a while at the time, and basically doing art department and whatever I could, and on the side doing illustrations. And I got hit up by an old friend in the co-op, Fallon, who at the time was a PA at Rick and Morty season 3. This is the very beginning of season 3. and
She loved my dog.
yeah, well, your dog's awesome.
Should have brought him.
And at the time I was doing another movie in the Bay Area, and she was like, "Hey, we want you to. I'm gonna be busy for a week." I think she was actually doing Coachella, and
I think I remember.
yeah. I think she didn't want anyone to know. And she was like, "Hey, I need someone to cover me. Have you done PA?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, I've done PA for like a year and a half at that point." And she's like, "Cool, can you come in for an interview?" And I'm like, yes, please. I was such a huge fan of Rick and Morty. I watched Rick and Morty, like, the very first episode came out when I was senior year of college.
Yeah.
And it was the pilot. And I would watch the pilot over and over and over again. And I was telling everyone about it. No one gave a fuck. No one gave a fuck about Rick and Morty.
That's how it was when the Venture Brothers pilot.
Yeah.
I was telling everybody when
Venture
I was
Brothers
in
is
school.
amazing! Oh my god, I'm such a
remember
fanatic of Venture Brothers. But Venture Brothers deserves way more credit for
Agreed.
certain things. Like, Rick and Morty takes some credit for stuff, but Venture Brothers did it first.
Yes, absolutely.
But anyway, I was such a huge fan. She's like, "Hey, can you come in for an interview?" I'm like, "When's the interview?" She's like, "Tomorrow morning." And I'm like, "Cool." I called the art director on the project I was working on. I'm like, "Hey," because at the time, then Rick and Morty was big. It was the very beginning of season 3. It was right at the peak before McNugget sauce, or Szechuan sauce.
Szechuan.
Yeah.
It counts.
And I was like, "Hey, Rick and Morty wants to interview me for like the PA for a little bit," and the art director was like, "Go, my child." And
Go,
so
little grasshopper.
I got in my car and I drove 8 hours to LA.
Wow.
At that moment, I literally packed up all my stuff because I was
So you were
staying in.
still, you were still in the Bay Area.
I wasn't living up there. I was on a movie up there. So
Okay,
I was
that
living in
4 month-
LA.
That 4-month
Gotcha.
project.
Oh, a different project.
Okay.
Yeah, weirdly enough, right when I moved to LA, everyone wanted me to do stuff in the Bay Area.
Oh,
Um,
God. Don't you hate
So, I drive all the way down, and I crash at my place in LA, and I go in for the interview, and the studio was so magic. Now I was sick of it because I've been there for so long. We moved locations, and the new location's awesome, but
So you
back then,
came in around season 3, huh?
yeah, very beginning, and that studio was really cool. When you first see it, it's like a cool dungeon, and then after being in there for a while, you get a headache. But
Because it's a dungeon.
it is a dungeon, yeah, and it was the coolest thing I've ever seen. I was like, oh my god. And the thing that really blew my mind out of it, blew my mind, was the fact that I was such a nerd. I collected weird horror movie posters. I loved comic books and all this other stuff. And in live action, people kind of pretend that they don't like that stuff,
Yeah.
or they just don't like it. You
Yeah.
know, they just aren't into it. They don't like toys. They don't like. I don't want to speak for everyone, but sometimes it was really hard to communicate with people in live action. They're in their own cliques. The camera department didn't give a shit about me, and no one cared. At lunch, no one wants to talk to each other. Every once in a while, I would goof around. I'd make some friends, but it was very difficult.
Yeah.
A lot of the time, people are on that set because they're getting paid and they want to go home and they want to go to their wife. They don't want to be there. So when I got there and I saw all these desks full of these toys of Venture Brothers and Invader Zim and all these other posters of all this cool stuff, I was like, my people, art school, it's back.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait, this is cool. And so I got the interview, and I worked out, which is amazing. It's just totally amazing.
So you subbed for Fallon for a week only?
For a week only, yeah. And then I literally
remember
drove.
that week.
Drove
Yeah,
back.
I drove all the way back that night, 7 hours.
I was
right
around
back.
for that week.
You were like a good, healthy, social butterfly.
Yeah, because I was so
remember you,
excited
yeah.
to be there. I was
Yeah.
so
What
excited.
point in season 3 was
This was, God, I feel like it was, you guys were probably only 3 episodes in or 2 episodes in at the time. I remember Lee, who's our editor,
I'm the only one who remembers.
I remember Lee was editing the episode 1 at the time. That's all I really remember.
It might even been like right before I started. I was relatively new to that.
Yeah, I'm
I
not
would
sure.
see you hang in the kitchen a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I became friends with Anthony Chun. It was really cool. When Anthony recognized me when I finally got a full job on the show, he was like, "Oh my god!" I was like, "Ah!"
He's
it was,
good with that.
yeah, it was really cool. But it was the most exciting week of my life, and I was just so stoked. I didn't mind getting people lunch. I didn't care. I just wanted to be a part of it.
Well, the writers were had to do that.
We
Yeah,
went to lunch.
exactly. And I was
We went to lunch.
Yeah, and then remember we went for
Yeah.
a walk. That
Yeah.
was really fun. And I just was like, these are my people. This is like what I wanted to be. I was sick of live action. This is what I realized I wanted all along. I thought live action was what I wanted. coming out of college, because live action has this like cool kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, I want to just be a weird nerd that watches Evil Dead and watches cartoons. And...
So specific.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
I just want to be a weird nerd that watches.
Oh yeah,
Evil Dead.
yeah.
That's all.
And I was like, these are my people, and I remember having such good conversations with them and talking about art and everything. And so I was like, I want that. But then when the week was done, it was like, no, wait. And I get pulled back into live action. And so I basically, no, wait. And so what I would start to do is, after that, I was like, I got to start learning animation. So I started, like, I bought books and self-taught and went on the internet and started doing my own tests and everything.
And you kind of had flashbacks to that senior year class?
Yeah. And I was like, wait, I fucked up. Wait, I should have been doing this. And not to trash on live action, because I've met some amazing friends and some beautiful stuff on the way. I'd say that like 90% of people in live action I'm not a fan of, but 10% are awesome.
Not to shit on them.
Awesome people.
Not to shit on them.
I love that ratio.
Roughly
accurate.
But I kind of met a cool medium, because after that period, one of my friends, Justin McLean, shout out, I really, really like Justin a lot. Justin is a production designer, which is a very big role. They're top of the art department. Production designer is a very, very prestigious title.
On what show?
He was doing all different music videos, all different stuff, and his music videos were amazing. And I remember PAing on a music video or a shitty commercial for a toy or something, and I was. After he was cleaning up, I went and I usually pass people my business card. I'm like, hey, if you want any drawings or something. And he was like, oh, cool, yeah. And then right after Rick and Morty, he hit me up and was like, hey, we're starting this show on Vice. Vice is for Viceland. It's their first show. It's called What Would Diplo Do? We want you on the art department. We want you to do the graphics.
Oh,
and I was like, oh, okay, like I can't quite get into animation right now, but this is cool. I still kind of get the live action, but I get the
in the right direction. Yeah.
And I had no idea how to do graphics. I had no idea.
Yeah. So it wasn't graphic design.
It was graphic design. So graphic design in film is really weird.
Motion graphics.
No, it's actually it's a separate thing. So I had no idea what this was. It was if a character is holding a mug or going to a hotel, the logo of the hotel, that's a graphic designer. The design on the mug, that's a thing. So it's your job to create this fictitious world. If they're going to a birthday party, you design the banner.
Legal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was basically kind of making like fake graphics for a show, which is nothing I went to school for.
Yeah.
Nothing for that stuff.
That's hard.
Yeah, but I was like, I'll try it. Let's see what happens.
How'd
so
you do?
I hope I did okay. It wasn't really that good, but
you didn't get fired, so
I didn't
I'm sure
get
you did
fired.
great.
But what's funny is if you see certain movies, the graphics are usually terrible. So I felt like I hit that mark.
Yeah.
But I met expectations on that. Although if you see a very expensive movie, they're beautiful usually. But then this is gonna be such a long story. But anyway, so because it took a long time for me to finally get to animation. So then I was following kind of that track, and I was doing graphic design and doing my own thing. And I actually got invited to join the union because that show, What Would Diplo Do, ended up flipping.
The graphic design union?
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
which is the art directors union.
Okay,
Art directors union. And I had to make a big choice. I was like, do I join the art directors union and then I become a graphic designer, or do I not? And it was really scary because I was like, I don't know what to do, and then my heart.
You don't want to get sucked in.
I didn't want to get sucked in because I didn't want to be a graphic designer. I wanted to do animation. I wanted to write. I wanted to do stuff. And so after, I think I got like a month to decide, and at the very end, I'm like, I'm not doing it. It was such a scary thing because it was like you have a fork in the road, and this is.
I feel like the universe kind of throws that a lot.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, and it was a really scary thing. And
what choice did you make?
I decided not to do the union. I didn't want to do graphic design, and then the universe kind of hit me really hard after that because I did a lot of work dried up and I didn't really know what to do, and I was like, fuck. I was kind of making ends meet, just doing commercials, and kind of fell back and driving vans places and music videos. And then I ended up getting a job because I knew a friend. Like how live action works is that a favor is everything. It is the greatest currency of all time.
That's amazing.
And so how favors work is and recommendations. So if I'm a PA or an assistant in art or something, and somebody's looking for a job, they don't ever post online. If you see people posting online about stuff, it's not going to happen, and I'm really sorry. It just doesn't. In live action, it's just who you know. It's worth trying, but I don't know if it will work. Anyway, they would like, do you know anyone? And then I would say yes, and that would be a favor because I would get a friend of mine, a job.
Yeah.
And if they did a good job, it makes me look good, it makes them look good, and then now
They owe you a favor.
they owe me a favor.
Yeah.
And so people, that's how this would be a currency. That's how people kind of worked in live action.
Makes sense.
And so my friend told a favor, and he got me on the biggest movie I ever worked on, which is the upcoming film called The Wild by Chris Sanders, who did Lilo and Stitch.
Yeah,
He's directing
sure.
it. It's kind of not Lion King. It's like a Jungle Book situation, half live action, half animated
Oh, really?
retelling of the classic story.
Wait, is it not out yet?
It's coming out in December of this year, or I think
Oh, wow.
February.
I think I heard of
And
that.
it has Harrison Ford, and it has the guy from Legion, the lead guy from Legion. Huge. I think it's $170 million movie. It's massive, and it was really stressful because at that time Disney bought Fox.
Yeah.
So,
So wait,
they
what
were
did you end up
ensuring-
doing on this movie?
I was in production.
Okay.
Yeah, which had nothing to do with anything, but I needed money because I made this split in the fork of the road, and I was like, I don't know what to do.
It's cool
So-
that you had something to fall back on.
Yeah, exactly. But that turned out to be the hardest job I ever worked on because of how big of the scope of the movie. You know, I was working 14, 15-hour days every day, which is normal in live action for certain things. But then you'd have free time. You'd work on something for a week or a month, then you'd have like a couple weeks off. But this is like, it was a job, but the job was like 15 hours a day, and I was losing who I was. I lost me. I didn't write. I didn't draw. There was not like, I just would wake up. I would get people lunch. I'd get executives for 20th Century Fox lunch, and I would go home and I would go to sleep. And I did this for like 3 months, and
Pulling your hair out.
oh yeah, it was like I hit depression to another level. Like walking in the road, like just car hit me. But and then at that time, Rick and Morty, I think it was 3 months in. And again, the people that I worked with, that crew, were amazing people. It's just really hard being a PA on live action movies. It's just, I was getting lunch for 30 executives in the middle of downtown Los Angeles, which is, there's no parking, and getting a lunch order for people, like 30 people, double parking. It's just every day, every single day.
That's tough, man.
And Rick and Morty got renewed for seven seasons. And I thought, okay, I haven't talked to the producer of the show at the time, but currently Mike Mandel. I haven't talked to Mike in 3 years since season 3. Let me just see if I have something. Let me just shoot an email. I was so desperate to get out because for a long time I was trying to get into animation. As you know, I'd reach out to Sabrina all the time, like, hey, do you know of anyone? Because while I was working live action,
I was a big advocate for you.
You were, and I was really
because I remembered you. You left a really good impression. Because I remember, because I was an intern once too. So you kind of remember when you were in that movie back in the day, and then when you see that in someone else, you're like, this guy needs, like, this person
how can we
deserves
help
it.
them?
Yeah.
And those are the people that you want to hang out with for the rest of your life, or just people that want to help other people. That's what I hope the industry becomes, is just people that want to help other people. That's why I kind of like the social currency thing, because it's like, look, you want to help people that you like, and that you believe will make life better for other people. But yeah, I was doing anything I could. You know, I was still doing illustrations. I was posting them online and getting likes on Instagram or whatever, but it wasn't, it wasn't doing anything.
Were you going, quick question, were you attending like any like sketch parties or any
Every once in a
social
while.
art events?
I was a really big fan of, like, Titmouse had the 6-second thing, and I would
5
go
second
network.
thing.
Yeah, I would go network over there and have friends. And I was having friends in animation. It's just, it's really hard to get into sometimes.
Yeah, your foot in the door is tough.
It's tough. And you don't want to come off being desperate.
No,
and stuff. Yeah, you don't want to be too eager. Like, hey, you know.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, exactly. But I would go to those kind of parties, and I would try to talk to people and network and stuff. But nothing was quite leading to anything.
Sure. But at least you had this one in with Mike.
Yeah, so you hit up Mike?
Yeah, so I hit up Mike. It was just a blind email. It was just like I hadn't talked to to this man in 2 years, and he's a producer of right now probably the biggest cartoon in the world.
Did you leave a good rapport with him when you?
Yeah,
left?
I did. Yeah, at least that was the hope.
Yeah,
you know.
for sure. He's tough guy to breakthroughs.
Yeah.
Breakthroughs
Well, it's
sometimes.
funny because I fucked up because this was I think like 6 months previously. Squanch Games at the time, Squanch Tendo was looking for somebody, and I asked Mike. I was like, hey, can you help me? So I guess I didn't. It wasn't like 2 years since I talked to him. It was then like, hey, can you send a recommendation? And Mike was like, sure, I'll push you through. And like 500 people applied for this job, and I actually got a phone call, and I blew that interview.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Let it be known, I have blown interviews with South Park. I've blown it with DreamWorks, with Disney Interactive, with EA Games.
Wow.
I have blown interviews with everyone.
Describe how you blow an interview and what in retrospect, what could you have said?
You know what's awesome is the one thing that always brought me down, and I'm actually mad because I don't feel like this is very fair, is that I would apply for like entry-level animation stuff, like being an intern or something, and they would always say, and I'd give them my business card because I was so eager, and they would have art on it, and they'd be like, well, do you want to animate for the show? I'm like, yeah, I'd love to animate for the show. And they'd be like, well, in positions like this, we can't promise you that you'll be this. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, no problem. Well, thank you. You know, I'd leave. And sometimes that was a huge turnoff where someone wouldn't hire you because they're thinking like, oh, this person's going to dip the second that they... And I don't blame them, but like people have aspirations.
Specifically when you're interviewing for production jobs.
Yeah. Production jobs or intern jobs.
I always tell people, my best advice for people who like go for production jobs, but eventually they want to get into the art side, unless the producer asks you if you're interested in drawing it somewhere down the line, don't mention it.
Don't mention it.
Until
Don't do it.
like you're there, you're establishing connections. Like I remember people didn't know when I was a PA at Cartoon Network, people didn't know I drew until a year later.
Yeah.
Whole year later, and I didn't even bring it up. They just saw me on social media and they saw me posting drawings, and that's it.
Yeah,
Interesting.
I don't know why there's such a stigma with a lot of people in the parts of production where they have production people who are so artistically talented. They're like, well, they could leave us. Well, I'm like, that's fine.
That's okay.
Yeah.
I'd rather have an artist. I'd rather work with an artist who also understands like the hurdles of production.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure. Be better
It
at
depends
production.
because
I agree,
some studios will totally say no. Like I heard like DreamWorks and like
Say
Disney,
no to
Yeah, that's
Say
why
no.
that's
for the
when they
whole, like,
interviewed.
if
They're like, "Ouch."
So
but
weird.
Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network, they actually like are all for it. They're like, if you want to eventually become an artist, this is perfect for you.
Yeah.
I think also
Yeah.
because there's certain politics in play. You guys know this for sure. How like production and art has to be separate because it's like arts managing all these crazy artists. It's like herding cats. It's like we don't want anyone to get in the cat side.
Right.
You need to be on this. You need to be the stone wall against those crazy artists. So I think that part of it might be
For sure.
that idea.
I think as a production person, like I think it's important to like know how to talk to artists properly. So you should know like artist lingo. You should know like how they think and how they operate.
And
Absolutely.
when they're bullshitting.
Yeah, and when they're bullshitting you about like what they can and cannot get done.
Right.
Because a lot of times I've worked in production for the last like 4.5 years or whatever, and I've seen production people who don't know how to communicate with artists, and they're always the ones that are the most disorganized and the worst to work with.
Right.
You know, the people that know art are the people that usually are successful.
Yeah, they're a little bit more. No,
So
yeah,
it's
you
weird
have
that
a
that's
point
even
there.
a stigma. I didn't even. I never even thought about
It's
that.
rarely come up, but I've heard about it enough times. I'm like, yeah, people do that. I don't get it.
I love when I work with artists,
And-
production people.
And writers should know how art works as well.
fuck
Writers
yeah.
should absolutely know. So if you're an aspiring writer for animation, learn how it works.
Yeah.
Please, for the
Yeah.
love of God.
It helps.
It
That's
helps
why
so much.
I think production jobs are always perfect for anything in
Yeah,
animation. Like if
I
you want to
agree.
even be a writer too, or even a voice actor. I think
Anything.
production is perfect because you
Yes.
get to learn the whole entire like
Yeah.
The whole ass
pipeline.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And knowing the pipeline is key. And I am
Yes.
so happy that I know
Yeah.
the pipeline.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
my first job in the industry, I hung out mostly with the production.
Yeah.
And then I learned like the terminology, what were the requirements, like when we like, all right, we're building a cinematic. Well, how long does that normally take? And I get the ins and outs. It's like, we're designing backgrounds. We have to have color stylists. What's involved with that?
Right.
Yeah.
They don't tell you any of these things in school. You
No.
I'm just an artist. I do my
Yeah.
stuff. But like,
They'll
there's
just
a whole
yeah.
thing.
The
Yeah, it's
whole
true. That's
thing.
never mentioned in school at all.
Yeah, it'd be really cool if there was like a mock like a mock thing in
Like a pipeline.
pipeline in that'd actually be really cool.
Yeah.
They do that, I think, for some film schools. Some people have to do different roles for certain things, so it'd be really cool if that was a way.
If they actually like copied the way a real production would do it, not like let's make a film, guys. Like let's do our own little film. No.
Ego's getting in the way when you production there.
Some people do BGs, some people do props, some people
clean up.
People find what they want to do. Like I've had tons of people tell me, it's like, well, I don't really enjoy animating, like actual hand-drawn animation. It's like, well, maybe you're more forward, maybe you're more background, maybe your color style, maybe your production.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, and a lot of young people don't know that there's so many different things available. They think animation, I just need to animate.
Yeah.
You know, but there's like hundreds of different jobs out
there. Oh
yeah,
it's a huge thing.
I see a lot of like really good animators who can't character design.
Yeah,
for sure. It's just like, shorts and t-shirt, cool, great character.
Yeah, we're learning now that like even character designers now like a lot of character designers don't realize you have to turn around your characters at some point.
Turn that stuff. It can't just be one pretty drawing.
You do a little bit of the animation work, and like you don't realize that until you apply for the industry, and you're like, oh crap, I gotta do this.
Learn turnarounds.
Yes,
it's not fun, but just do it. It becomes a thing after a while. It's just
vital.
learn. Yeah, if you don't know turnarounds, you're not getting a job.
As a designer, I'm sorry.
Yeah, if they test and you can't do a turnaround, they'll be like, cool looking alien. Sorry.
Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.
As an illustrator, that's interesting coming into this world because you were saying like in the beginning you were illustrating like flat images.
Yeah, you don't have to fucking think about
those things.
Yeah.
But, like the most vital, basic thing in animation is having the character move in move in 3D space.
Yeah.
So it's like a super important skill.
And my illustrations and everyone else that I saw that comes more from the animation background, their art feels more lively because they know how to turn something around. It feels like you live in this world.
Yeah, it's important.
So you hit up Mike first.
Yes. So
blew the interview.
I blew this interview. It's actually really funny. I don't mind saying how bad I blew it. The person I don't quite remember their name, but
was Mike Chillian on that thing?
I'm not sure. And they asked. This is so stupid. I can't believe I was pacing back and forth. I was so nervous. They asked me if I knew how to replace RAM in a computer. And it's a weird skill. And so I thought, not replace, install RAM. That was her wording, is install RAM. And I thought, like, she didn't mean physically. I thought you meant, like, you know how it's a scam that you can install RAM on a computer, but you can't install RAM.
Yeah.
It's a scheme, and they trick 14-year-olds all the time. So I thought, well, it's a trick question.
This is a joke question.
Yeah, you can't install RAM. And then this person was like, no, I mean, literally taking out RAM and putting into another. And I'm like, oh. And then that did it. That blew it out. That was enough.
You were like,
that was enough.
Nice try.
Yeah. Like, out. So
sing, cut, closed door in your face.
Yeah.
That's all that was.
So I blew that, and I thought, wow. At the time I thought, I blew it. She's gonna tell Mike, and I'm never gonna get anything in animation again. But fast forward 7 months or 8 months or whatever, and I hit up Mike again, and I was like, hey, congratulations. If you need any help, let me know. And I was really on my last legs. So I was working this job that was so stressful. I just needed this so bad.
Yeah.
And Mike emailed me back, and he was like, oh yeah, we'll let you know. And I was like, oh cool. Like, at least an email back is like, hey, that's something. And then eventually I got an email from my now boss, Dave, and he was like, hey, we want you to come in for an interview, see if you'd be interested. So I was like, oh my god! So I called in sick to my job. I was like, oh, I feel terrible. And I drove to Rick and Morty, and I applied for the interview. And one of the things that, some people are like, oh, I have regrets about doing this, and I have regrets. Like, I guess you could look at me and be like, oh, I regret being in live action or yada yada. But one of the things that actually got me the job is that my boss now, Dave, came from live action. And so he was like, well, tell me your experience. I was like, oh, I come from live action and all this. And that was what impressed him. Mm-hmm. And he was like, oh, shit. And I realized now that if I never worked in live action, I would have never gotten that job. Because his mentality was that, like, this guy is used to working 15-hour days.
Mhm.
You should have him.
I noticed Rick and Morty had a lot of that because I remember Tamara. She was the same deal. She was the executive assistant. Like
Season
in the
1 and 2.
beginning, yeah. She worked in live action as
Yeah.
well.
Mhm.
They had a lot of like people from live action for some reason.
Yeah, because if you could work 15-hour days,
You can work
like,
12 hours.
Yeah, then
Yeah.
you could be a slave.
yeah, yes,
Right.
yes.
That's interesting.
That's how they whip you.
But that was, and if I didn't have that experience, I wouldn't be where I am today.
Yeah.
So this
Everything's
weird
interconnected.
spiral thing actually
Yeah.
That
worked out in
one
my
character
favor.
design class.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly,
true. And all that
exactly.
live action bullshit you had to go through.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It all
actually,
worked
actually
out.
mattered in retrospect.
And now
So-
I'm sure it's not as crazy as live action, right?
No,
Like, this is the
no,
most
I am
chill
so
job.
thankful.
Yeah.
I'm so thankful. It's like I go to work at 10, I leave at, or I go to, work at like 10 a.m., I leave at like 6:45, 7-ish. I have lunch. It's
I have
They
lunch.
actually let you eat.
Awesome. They
That's
let
pretty
you
great.
Yeah.
Hey, that's
Yeah, oh
quite
my
that's
God.
quite the story.
I'm
man.
glad they
Yeah.
let you eat lunch.
I know. I'm
just kidding.
so glad. I'm so
No,
glad.
me eat lunch.
Yeah.
I'll eat one day.
It's true. We didn't
Rick and
let
Morty's on that.
Yeah,
level.
yeah.
Just kidding.
Out of curiosity, so now that we got to the point where you're at
Yeah, it took
At
a
Rick and
long
Morty.
time.
No,
yeah.
that's
No,
cool.
it's,
Listen,
that's all what
it's
this is
an
all about.
incredibly unconventional story of like all this crazy shit you had to go through, and like even real quick before I ask the next question, I'm wondering when you were feeling like you were like on your last legs, you were saying like what was going through your mind, like how did you continue? I know you were making shorts and you were making illustrations about
Yeah.
depression and anxiety, so I know you're connected to those feelings.
Oh,
How are
like-
you feeling, and how did you deal with those feelings of like I might not make it? This might be I might be out of luck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or
Well-
when you were
What did-
unemployed.
Yeah, what did you do to deal with that?
When I was on the Call of the Wild thing, it was just extremely unhealthy because I didn't have, I think for me, I was always able to kind of help with my mental health by drawing it or finding a way to cope. And since I was working these long days,
You're too busy to outlet.
yeah, too busy, and actually just health punched me in the face. I started to get these weird psychosomatic things where my eye would like hurt and twitch.
Yeah,
And I went to the eye doctor, and they're like, "Yeah, that's stress induced." I would get bumps on my fingers. I didn't have a
Yeah,
way
your
to.
body will manifest ailments.
Oh yeah, and it's fucking horrible. So I didn't have. That's what I really was
Yeah.
at my last legs. So I didn't have a way to cope here because I didn't have the ability to draw.
Yeah. So you were suffering.
I was suffering, because before this, I was, I did have these live action jobs, but I would work Monday and Tuesday. I'd probably get a job Friday, but then Wednesday, Thursday, it's drawing time, baby. I got the whole day.
Sure.
I'm loving it. I get to write my own things. At the time, I was pitching TV shows to people. I was with my friends. We were writing, so I was project
Yeah.
on project on project.
Just a lot of
whenever I could.
positive energy.
Yeah, and then when
the
it hit
Call of the
that,
Wild
it
was just fucked.
it was fucked. It's just like, it's not the crew's fault. It's just
Oh, yeah,
that's how live action works. It's just people. You're basically selling your body for sometimes some people 3 years.
I always tell people, no matter what job you work, have a hobby outside.
Yeah, you
No
have
matter
to.
what, even if
No
it's
matter
the job,
what.
if it's the job of your dreams, still do something different outside
Yeah.
because you do get burnt out.
Yeah, because
Good advice.
there's a lot of illustrators or animators, character designers, etc. that I know that they don't want to draw when they get home, and that really depresses me, and it's tough. If there's any way to just make something a little different, start making pixel art or something,
Yeah.
There's
Um,
art in other ways too.
Yeah, because if you
Music.
get burned out, it's
Yeah.
fucking tough.
Did you have to quit Call of the Wild to go to Rick and Morty?
I did. I didn't quite tell Rick and Morty that, but I was like, "Fuck you" to the Call of the Wild. But they were really understanding when I told them it was Rick and Morty because it was so massive.
Yeah.
They're like, "Oh shit, yeah, go!" And I was
I like
like,
how
"Oh."
that tends to be a thing.
Yeah,
with
that's
Rick
the
and
Yeah, I
case.
know.
I think that
that
was
was the
when I too got my first job on Rick and Morty. They were telling, because I was a PA too,
Yeah.
and I was leaving them, and they told me the same thing. They're like, definitely take it.
Yeah.
Go for it. It's gonna be big.
Came on season 2.
I came on season 2, and they knew how big it was going to be,
Mhm.
and how it was gonna blow up. And they're like, no, yeah, you should go for it. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm taking all of your advice.
Yeah, and that's really cool, and I'm really supportive of the people that were like that. That is an awesome mentality to have, and thank you for that.
Yeah,
Don't
you should never
guilt
get
trip
in the way
me.
of other people's success.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. So as a design assistant, now you're there. Now you made
Yeah.
it. You're at Rick and Morty. This
I have
is a
time to
fucking
draw
amazing
again.
job.
I
You
have
have
time
time to
to do
draw
it,
again.
yeah.
You're on one of the biggest cartoons
Yeah,
ever to grace the TV screen.
it's true.
What
what's a daily work day for you?
It definitely it varies day to day.
Yeah.
Because I kind of I help with production, and I don't know how much you've talked about production in the show previously.
Here and there, yeah. Quite a bit.
Production basically is you have people that work in backgrounds, you have people that work in props, you have people that work in character designs, you have an editor, or multiple editors, you have board artists, and it's kind of the job of production to kind of wrangle all these things together, make sure people are on track.
Mm-hmm.
When I first started the job, it was my job to take all of these assets and organize them on the server. So we had all this jumbled backgrounds, props, all this stuff from season 3, jumping right in the middle of season, or right in the start of season 4, before any board artists are hired.
Mm-hmm.
And it was my job to take all these things and kind of organize it.
Wow.
So, and it was actually, it was pretty fun because, coming from an art background, it's awesome looking at these props and these backgrounds. And I just wish there was, there's not Rick and Morty art book, but I wish it was even bigger that just had these props, because the people that make the stuff,
it's coming.
I hope so, because it's gorgeous. These people are so talented, and especially there's long nights on Fridays we have to ship to the Canadian company Bardell.
Fridays.
Fridays.
Fridays suck for every production.
Oh, and it's so hard, and sometimes we'll be there until 9 p.m.
Yeah.
Which is nothing compared to my live action stuff. So it's whew. But I'm looking at these backgrounds, and I'm just like, fuck, I could live in this world right now.
Yeah.
It's so gorgeous, and it's got this the lighting is beautiful, and anyway, so I'm organizing all these assets and making it easier for the board artists and other people to have access to this.
Mm-hmm.
And then after I was kind of done with that project, now it's kind of my job to kind of organize the storyboard, make sure that I'm exporting these files, making sure that they're given the right people, make sure that these board artists have these right props to reference when it's time. I goof around and talk to people a lot.
It's always fun. Do you do any of the population of the lead sheets or anything like that?
Yeah, I help with the lead sheets. Have you talked about lead sheets before?
I don't think we ever mentioned lead
Yeah.
sheets.
I've done lead sheets.
Yeah, lead sheets are essential. They're basically when you're going to be shipping to, Canada or Korea or wherever you're going to ship to. How a cartoon works is, at least Rick and Morty, is that you have a scene, and each scene there is a background, there is props, there is characters, and you need to make sure that all that stuff is accounted for. So we take a storyboard, which is the kind of the loose drawings, and I say, okay, in this scene, there's Rick, there's Morty, there's another alien, there's a cantina, the background is a school, it has a water bottle, oh, Rick just throws a rock, okay, cool, we need to assemble all this stuff so that the team in Canada knows exactly how to assemble the scene.
For sure. I don't know how it is on Rick and Morty anymore, but for when we do it back in Starburns, the Bardell actually, the company we're working with on Harmon Quest is also Bardell. They want the exact file name.
They want everything.
Yeah. So it needs to be. I know at some point we used to just type in water bottle or something like that.
Yeah, you can't do that.
And now we're copying the exact name,
the Photoshop name.
The Photoshop name. So if it changes at any point during the thing, it can fuck everything up.
Yeah.
So it's a very, very intricate process that you need to pay excruciating details.
And one of the major perks on my side is that since I have access to these PSDs, if there's a certain background or prop or something that I really like, I could kind of look at the layers and see how the artist made it. Happens all the time.
Yeah.
And I really like it.
And
so
there's something about actually visually absorbing art all day long. You actually get a sense of confidence that you could do it too.
Absolutely.
I remember that's how I gained confidence to do backgrounds on the very first show that I ever did backgrounds for. I saw so much of them. I almost kind of felt I could do it just because I absorbed all of it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same thing with when I used to read screenplays. It's like you just read enough and kind of learn the rules by looking at all that stuff.
It's like a visual library.
Exactly. And so that is a really big perk of being in production, is being able to have access to all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, you actually get to touch the art. And see
it's really cool, and it's cool because I walk by all my friends who are these artists, and I see them in the process of things, and then when they finally turn it in, it's like, oh shit. And it's easy to be in this job and think, oh, okay, this is a job, I'm drawing a goofy alien, but then the quietness of the night when everyone's gone home and I'm filming this stuff. I'm like, wow, this is like, these people are so talented and this is beautiful. This scrotum on this alien is like so well drawn.
At the end of the day, every piece that's drawn is a work of art by itself.
Yeah, and
there's like thousands per episode.
And this is an extension of art school, where art school, you know, you were surrounded by all these people that were making craft, and you felt so cool because people are able to create, and that's so beautiful and it's awesome. And I get a job, and it's, you know, it's definitely stressful. Animation isn't like peachy magic rainbows, but
I know you're making it seem very peachy magic rainbows.
yeah, but if you were to kind of just chill out and think about it, it is beautiful that people are just making art all day, and
that's why they need you there.
Yeah, exactly. To remind people.
You're that little like butterfly that's like, oh,
like
art.
Yeah.
So Josh, do you want to stay in production?
I don't mind it. Well, the cool thing about production is that that I get to work on my own stuff on the side. I think that, you know, indie animation is not going to be paying the bills. And I find that there is absolutely nothing wrong having a day job and having a craft on the side. There's a lot of amazing artists that have a day job and they put stuff out. I'm sure there's a lot of your favorite artists online, musicians, yada yada, that like make amazing stuff, but it's not enough to pay the bills. You know, I think that's sort of like the LA dream, is to be able to pay by doing what you want. And I think that's really, if you could get that, fuck yeah, you know, you did it. But it's also, you don't have to, that doesn't have to be a thing. You can work at a coffee shop and still work at your own thing. One of my friends quit her job being an assistant to this huge executive because it finally occurred to her that being an assistant to an executive is not going to get her to be a writer. She quit that job, is going to be working at a coffee shop and writing, and is going to be 1,000 times happier.
Oh, yeah.
1,000 times happier because she works from like 9 a.m. to like 6 or 8 to whatever, goes home and does her own thing, and nobody's pressuring her to be anything.
Put her mouth over her head, and then the rest of the time she's thinking about all the creative endeavors she wants to pursue.
Exactly.
If you're not stressed at work, you're gonna have a more clear mindset at home.
Yeah, and I hope, especially in the age of millennials now, where, you know, it's very hard to be in the industry and get paid for it.
Yeah.
You know, if
paid appropriately.
Exactly. So people out there, there's nothing wrong with following your craft on the side and getting paid, and there's nothing wrong with production either. So that's why I really don't mind it. I like it. I really like my coworkers. So yeah, you know, I don't mind it, and I think, you know, in some magic dreamland, if it works out, I would like to be a writer for animation, but I also don't mind being what I'm being and working on my stuff on the side.
Well, you're in the perfect place.
I think so. Yeah. You really are. You're surrounded by super talent. Like Rick and Morty is one of the best written shows.
Yeah, and it's I have access to all these people that are my friends.
See all the drafts of the script.
Exactly, and some of them are not quite so good. So writers out there, like, you got, there's hope.
So, were you gonna ask?
Real quick, as far as like going from production to writing, a buddy of mine, Margaret Scott, she was the script supervisor, I think, on the Looney Tunes show.
Cool.
2009
Yeah,
the sitcom you went.
Yes. I worked on that too. But like the thing, I knew she wanted to pursue writing because she even worked on like Fanboy and Chum Chum.
Sure.
And like after doing like a few of those jobs for like on a few shows, she finally got the opportunity to start like writing on like Transformers.
Sure.
Right now she's even working on like the new Guardians, but also on the side she writes like the Wonder Woman and Batgirl comics.
Yeah, exactly.
Bam Animation is on. Sorry, I'm reading the chat.
Is Brent on there?
Brent and Max.
Oh,
Bam.
yeah. Brent, and you guys are amazing. So much. I really, they are some of the kindest people.
And watch their episode.
Yeah, shout out
What's
to
up,
Bam. Seriously, if you watch this show but you haven't heard of Bam by some magic ability,
No, I'm sure they have.
know you absolutely, it's required viewing. They are two of the most talented artists that I know. Honestly,
Max was my
They're
boss.
offering like some amazing advice for free, which is
amazing.
Is uncanny.
I am so mad. You know, when I was learning animation forever ago, there wasn't these things on YouTube. There was nothing.
Yeah.
there was nothing. All I would be able to do is go on Newgrounds and dissect things and guess how people would do stuff.
Yeah.
And then, if I had BAM animation, if I was 15 years old, I'd be like, I'd be fucking Dan Harmon right now, like the
It's
king of
funny.
animation.
People say the same thing about like the beauty community. Sorry, it's like totally irrelevant, but like a lot of people nowadays, like women, were like, "Yay! Like YouTube is like a savior for makeup." Because back then, when we were younger, nobody knew how to fucking do makeup at all.
And it's the same in makeup for movies too. There was nothing.
Yeah.
And then I think Tom Savini, is that his name? He released a book. He released a book on the secrets of makeup, but before that book, there was absolutely fucking nothing. There's these worlds that you can't have access to. And
the internet is a gateway to everything you've ever wanted to know.
Yeah.
you can do it.
And
Animation, you
never
can
wanted
learn.
to know.
Anything you want to learn, actually.
Yeah.
I learn about a lot of everything
If
whenever I get into something.
Oh, if I had my iPad Pro and I was 15 years old and BAM animation, man.
I'm sold. That was never even a consideration for me. Like, the thing I learned the most about animation was the Batman animated.
Oh, yeah.
Like 1997, maybe 98.
Yeah.
I read that thing cover to cover.
The art book?
It's the art book.
Yeah.
It's out of print now, which is sad because it's one of the best to just like kind of detail the behind the scenes production. Like they actually talk about their VSP notes.
That's awesome.
And like that's the thing people don't know. It's like we have to, when we do a show, we have to report to people. It's like, hey, can we strangle this baby or not?
Yeah.
And someone say, you can't strangle a baby this way, but you can strangle a baby this way.
Yeah, hold it upside down and shake it.
You can't use like a wire, but
You
maybe
smother
you
a
can.
baby.
I love it.
Yeah.
Fucking
I
VSP.
love it.
So
Yeah.
stupid.
That's great. That's pretty
Shout
awesome.
out to Bam.
Yeah, shout
What's
out
up,
to
Bam?
BAM.
Cool. So, Josh, as we're winding your story down here, before we get into some fan questions, I'm sure
I think we got one question. I think we can't probably go too long in questions, just because we are a bit over.
Oh, sure.
But we just did we got one question. I don't
Okay.
think we got any
Before
other
we get to
questions.
the question, I want to ask you the kind of how we wrap up things usually here is we ask if there's any one bit of super important advice that you could give to like a young version of yourself. What would you give out to the people watching right now?
Yeah, I would. What I would say to young version of myself and everyone out there is, watch your mental health in terms of your work.
Guys like me, man.
Nice.
I'm glad you're here.
There is. I went through about 4 months of very serious medical problems very recently. Just got over it because of overworking, and stress can do horrible things to your body. And there is people that work on Rick and Morty right now that are dealing with a lot of stress stuff because they go home and then they have freelance stuff that they work on and they overwork themselves because they want to do stuff. And that is extremely unhealthy and it is not necessary.
Yeah.
And some people get like 3 hours of work. So there's this very poisonous mentality that you need to, as an artist, you need to just pump out all this work. You need to be famous on Instagram and do whatever. And that, like, that's cool for a period of time until that comes and bites you in the fucking ass. And you have $10,000 worth of medical bills because stress destroyed your body. There is on Chef's Table, which is a dope Netflix show, there's this famous chef, and he worked himself so hard that he lost his eyesight for a period of time because of stress. And it finally came back when he relaxed and chilled out. So please, for the love of God, your mental health is much more important than your craft. Your craft can take time. You don't need to be a prodigy. There is a fetishization of a young, brilliant artist, and that is a 1 in 100,000 chance. You could be a brilliant artist when you're 38 years old. Take your time. Do not push yourself because your body will destroy you. Human beings are not meant to only sleep 3 hours and slave away. Sure. It is okay to turn down jobs if you need to sleep. It is okay to turn down jobs. You will not. There's no FOMO. You will not have lost your opportunity. They will always come back. More opportunities will come up.
Yeah.
That's probably the best advice we've ever. I don't think people ever talked about mental health. I mean,
it is so
when
important.
I was on
Maybe
Rick and Morty
touched
season
upon it, but
3,
that's really important.
I had the worst health issues I think in my entire life when I was on Rick and Morty season 3.
Because of the stress from the job?
Yeah, and there was also anxiety and fear of like getting let go because it was such a prestigious job. And it sucks because when you do have to go to the hospital, like or urgent care or whatever, so many times you do get scared that at some point the production's gonna get fed up with your shit, and then they're gonna let you and that causes more anxiety, and then it causes more health issues. So it's just just don't overwork yourself.
Having worked on a couple of prestigious shows now, that's why I am. I'm just it's not that important.
It's not
No.
We're
that
only
important.
making cartoons.
No.
Yeah.
Really chill out. You're 9 to 5.
Yeah.
Go home, chill out. If it's too stressful, don't worry about it. You can push the production.
Right.
Yeah.
Things can happen. I'd rather have everyone's health be in great shape,
Much better shape.
and and then we get it out because that's more fun.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been on shit shows. I've been on great shows,
Yeah.
and it's always really fun to be on a shit show.
Right.
Because then
It
you're
is.
like,
It's
It is.
nice
It
to
is,
hear
yeah.
You don't care
someone
that
that's been in animation for a very long time, like Brian, say something like that, because a lot of times, when you don't hear that, a lot of us students hear the opposite. We're you gotta work really hard because it's a competitive field, so you better
yeah, I
you
got
gotta
that
earn
message
it. You
too.
gotta earn it. It's well, no. So it's nice to hear someone like you saying, no, calm down.
Yeah, and I would never want to run a production house like that. And
Yeah.
have people, because when I have my own team, I'm like, shut up.
Yeah.
Okay, people are like, should we get something? I was like, no, don't worry.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah,
Because I'm
yeah.
confident enough to know we're producing quality stuff.
Yeah.
Very true. Yeah, very
Because
true.
people are not going to be making their best stuff if they're overworked and exhausted
Yeah.
and depressed and
Are hating me or hating the
Yeah.
production. I'm like,
yeah.
It's good.
For sure.
Fucking Brian!
We're all good.
Ah!
So
Yeah.
watch your mental health.
Yeah.
And it's also okay to seek medication if you feel like it's necessary.
Thank
For
you
sure.
so much, Josh.
Yeah.
That's so
That was good
powerful.
Good advice, Josh, and
Um,
also good interview overall. That was great, man.
I have
a lot of really cool stuff.
I have a question, and then Lauren said, Josh, your story is so inspiring going from live action to animation. What were some of your favorite hangout spots in the Bay Area? Bar, restaurant, hike, anything?
There is a in Berkeley. Berkeley is my soul. I love Berkeley so much. I think it's changed over time because of Silicon Valley. I don't hate Silicon Valley, but there is the fire trails over there are these beautiful hiking spots that I just went all the time. I would be jogging there almost every morning. It's one of the things I miss in LA is just being surrounded by trees and being so close. I mean, we have Griffith Park and stuff, but it's kind of a ways away from me. But that was I absolutely love that area over there. I think one of the things in the Bay Area, I didn't grow up in LA, so I don't know if this is the case, but in the Bay Area, it was easy in Berkeley and stuff to just kind of go for a walk in the middle of the night and smoke weed and hang out with your friends. And in LA, it's more about going somewhere. You're going to a restaurant. You're going.
Yeah.
It's a place.
Yeah,
In
sure.
Berkeley, it was more like going to the woods.
Yeah.
Woods, I hope we don't die.
Yeah, because LA, maybe in parts around USC and maybe UCLA,
Oh, sure,
for
sure.
sure you can do
Yeah.
that because it's a college town. But
Yeah.
LA, people have destinations.
Right,
Yeah, I was gonna say,
exactly.
Berkeley feels more like a college.
Right,
town,
exactly,
where you can kinda walk
exactly.
around, just wander without a destination,
Yeah.
which is nice.
One other question. I think this is probably going to be the last question. I know we didn't take questions tonight. When animating Captain Gupper and a recording for my brother animations,
Oh,
what is he animating with?
Oh,
Especially,
I was-
especially
at the
the
time-
animated leaf in a recording for.
Oh yeah, that was when Blonde came out by
Thank you, Lindsay.
Oh my gosh, why am I
Like
forgetting?
Garber.
No, Blonde, the album Blonde by Frank.
Blonde, but
Yeah, why am I
Blonde
forgetting?
on Blonde.
Frank Ocean. Frank Ocean.
Frank Ocean.
Frank
oh.
Ocean
I don't know
released
Frank
Blonde.
I know
It's
Frank Ocean.
masterpiece album, and then also
Great
Bon Iver released an album at the time, and very melancholy. And I had this idea. I was like, oh, wouldn't it be beautiful if there was this, I started making these animated vignettes,
Mhm.
and it was just it was basically I want to practice animation, but make it really short form. And I was like, oh, what if it was this kind of just like a peaceful, these vignettes of stories. So I had this idea where it was what if there was a grave, and it was an older brother and a younger brother would leave recordings at the grave to his older brother about dreams that he had. And I thought that was kind of pretty and beautiful, and I made this this kind of fall color scheme. And so I went to my housemate at the time, a very good friend, Baylor, and I was like, hey, record your dream. So what I used to do was make art by just having people record stuff, and one of my short films I actually just recorded. It's really fucked up in retrospect, but my friend was, this is how artists work. My friend was breaking up with his girlfriend, and I was like, hey, can you both record this and give it to me? And they both were like, yeah, sure, for the sake of art. And I made a short film out of it.
Oh my god!
It was completely consensual. They were completely okay with it. That's why it turned out
they used to break up with each other.
I know.
Afterwards, did they come back to you and be like, "So who was really right?"
Yeah, exactly. But so I had him record this dream, and then I made a thing, and I kind of animated it. At that time, I didn't have enough money for Flash, so I recorded it in Manga Studio because I really liked.
I hear it's a decent program.
It's okay.
Yeah.
It's completely frame by frame.
Yeah.
Which is I prefer frame by frame because I like buoyancy and I like that sort of thing, and I like So I did that, and I like the color pencil brush. So I did all that in Manga Studio. I think it's decent. I think you could add music in it now. At the time you couldn't, so I did other stuff and I torrented After Effects. I should have just torrented a good animation program, but I didn't. So yeah, that was in Manga Studio at the time.
Nice.
Since
Cool.
then I know Flash.
That's good. It's like behind the scenes. So.
I wonder if Manga Studio would work on just about a Surface Pro.
You could do it on iPad. Yeah, you can do it on the Surface Pro. Yeah, it's a good start. It's a good start program. Yeah.
Cool.
So that's it for questions. And also, Richard earlier said that you didn't start off with the interview saying, "And we're gonna dive into their ass."
Oh,
shit.
I always say that.
Yeah,
Richard pointed that out earlier.
It's been like 2 months. Give me a break.
He's rusty. This was forever ago, but
We're gonna dive deep into Josh's ass
Yeah.
today.
Got it.
Edit that in.
Well, we're well into his ass.
Yeah, no, we're like up there. We're like in the
We're way
large
past it.
intestine
Yeah.
right now.
Guess what?
Swimming around.
Colon's good.
Yeah, it all checks out. So Brian, do you have any last minute words of wisdom for us?
Oh, see, he's got. There you
Now I
go. You're
remember.
back
I
at it.
remember
Yeah,
what we
thank
used to do.
Well, I think for like with Josh's story specifically, it shows that there's no like concrete direction in how you can get into the industry and what you can do in the industry. Because like you were in what was it called? Your illustration.
Editorial.
Editorial
yeah,
illustration,
which
yeah.
I'd never even heard of.
I know, yeah.
Yeah. But I understand like what that entails and how that's not a direct path in animation.
Right.
Like you learn skills from there that help more
yeah.
with character work, which help more with your productions, sensibilities, working in short films,
Right.
live action films, which gave you like more opportunities to meet people, know people,
Right.
connect with people.
Yeah.
Just that connection game, and like you said, doing favors.
Right.
It's how I got every job I ever had. Is someone saying, "Hey, oh, Brian's cool. Hire Brian."
Right.
Or we know a person who can handle this. Go hire that person. That's how I also facilitate other people to get
Yeah,
better.
I believe in like good karma.
Yeah.
Like where you help someone genuinely just to help them out. You don't help them thinking
It's not
maybe
one
this,
for one.
maybe
Yeah.
this person will help me down later.
Yeah,
you just
no.
help them because you want to,
Yeah.
and then like
Do you like
good karma just comes back around
Because
somehow.
you want to fill the
Yeah.
industry full of good people.
Exactly.
That's your hope, is that this industry is flooded with people that are kind. And
that
that is
that's part of the reason why when people apply for jobs through an email or something,
Yeah.
they usually don't get those jobs
Right.
because you might be a decent person. I don't.
It
know
doesn't
you.
translate.
Right.
Yeah, it doesn't translate.
Right.
The personal touch doesn't translate.
Right. I'd hopefully give you an interview to find out if I know or like
Yeah.
or not.
But y'all
But most
come-
of the time, it's like, oh, I already know somebody.
being a good person sometimes outweighs your skill. I'll
Yeah.
tell you that.
So,
Yeah.
And you can tell just by this
It
whole entire
depends.
interview that Josh like had a passion just for art itself. It wasn't always just like I want a job, I want a job, I want a job, I want a job. You know, it was
that's
like
a good point.
art
Yeah.
is so beautiful
artist,
and like
you're
all this stuff.
passionate.
You're
Yeah.
like super deep and like you could tell you're passionate. And like when people see that, then they're like, yeah, no, this person's like let's hire this person. Not like I want a
Passionate,
job, I want a
And
job.
he's not a dick.
Give me a job.
Passionate and not a
and,
dick.
and go with what you do.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Well, Josh, thanks so much for being here, man. You really killed it. You
Appreciate it.
Really interesting, unconventional story
Yeah.
that a lot of people that are coming up in the industry right now are like about to join the industry or at least want to.
And very relevant.
It's
Yeah.
really relevant. They can all relate to it, and also they can probably see themselves. They're putting themselves in your shoes, which is something that we don't often get here. So that's awesome. We really
Where
appreciate that.
can everybody follow you?
Oh, so I have a website, joshuabarish.com. I make really weird Instagram videos. I made one to promote this one. Did you see that one earlier?
No, but I'm just
I-
laughing because
I-
you're like I make.
I
really
covered
weird-
myself in blood earlier and made it.
Oh, I gotta
was,
see it.
It was pretty cool. It is the Unstable Artist on Instagram. or you could go just Instagram my name, Joshua Barish.
Should be a link below.
Yeah, link below.
Link below.
There.
Right here. No. Is it right here?
Cool stuff are coming. Cool stuff's coming.
Cool stuff coming.
Yeah.
Nice, man. Well,
Did
Josh-
anyone ever guess what he is? Just kidding.
Oh,
Yeah, what is the ethnicity? Yeah, guess
No
what
one
it
guessed.
is. Yeah.
Take
You go ahead and
Joshua
email me.
Barish.
I'll give you a little Rick and Morty treat if you can guess it right.
Oh.
He has hats. He has
Yeah,
t-shirts.
I got it all.
What's his ethnicity?
So go ahead and follow him, like, share, and subscribe, and all that good stuff. Do not leave comments about our audio. We've got enough of them.
It's not like we're
We're
a
good.
podcast or anything.
If you think that it needs to be better, just why don't you donate some money?
Yeah, for sure.
Also, feel free to
Venmo us.
email me if you have any questions
Vimeo.
about the industry.
Vimeo.
I really like talking to people. My email is joshuawbarish@gmail.com. People email me all the time, and I always get back to them if I can.
That's sweet.
Yeah, and
See, he's offering that.
yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm offering right now. Feel free to email me, and I will do my best
Get
to.
some weird emails.
Yeah, I will
We
absolutely.
have
get some weird
millions
emails.
of fans, so
yeah,
be ready.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
But that's like how you did, so you
Yeah.
move forward.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for
I
sure.
get it.
That's
Exactly.
really sweet,
Yeah.
Josh. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Josh, thanks a lot, man. A lot of great advice. Really unconventional path. I'm sure a lot of people are just like, oh, this is awesome. I really have a lot of hope now. So thanks so much for that. You were a pleasure to have on here. That has been Josh Barish's ass. I hope you guys enjoyed his ass and diving deep into it. We will see you guys next time in the ass. Peace out.
He's
everybody.
making up for it, guys.
Thanks again, Josh, man. Appreciate it.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Oh,
Yeah, business.
yeah.
Business handshake.
Yeah.
And scene.
Yeah.
Thank
We gotta
you.
jump